The story begins with a car driving down the road while a boy plays on his phone. His name is Gil Su, and his parents ask him to stop playing. However, he doesn't respond. As they continue their journey, they enter a tunnel, and his mother insists that he should listen to his father. The man watches him through the rearview mirror and sighs. Gil Su then comments that his father probably regrets having him as a son since he suffers intensely from bullying at school. His mother replies that if the students start bullying him again at the new school, he can simply quit, as she wants him to have a comfortable life. He calls her a liar, claiming that she begged his father to transfer him, but gets no response and returns to his game. After losing, he stares at the game over screen and wonders if he should end it all. The scene shifts to the entrance of Six Gate School, where Gil Su walks hesitantly, wishing he could run away. He even prays for an earthquake to happen. Introducing himself, he says his name, Lee Gil Su, and tries to finish his sentence but quickly wishes time would stop so nothing bad could happen. Suddenly, the students start applauding him. Surprised, he lifts his head and realizes they're welcoming him, saying it's cool to have someone from the big city around. Later, another student approaches with a friend. Gil Su, already expecting the worst, thinks he's about to be bullied again. However, the student just places a hand on his back, introduces himself as Deal, and invites him to the store, saying he'll show him around. Gil Su, surprised, realizes it's the first time he's ever gone to a store with friends. As they walk, Deal comments on their friend's eyebrows, saying they look like Rock Lee's. Gil Su replies that, in a way, he thinks they have their own charm. He starts wondering why the school feels so friendly since everyone seems happy and having fun. For the first time, he considers the possibility of having a peaceful life there. However, when he bumps into another student, he feels a tightness in his chest. The student remarks that he got soaked, making Gil Su panic and apologize repeatedly, saying he'll clean it all up. To his surprise, the other just smiles and says it's fine and appreciates the offer. Gil Su is stunned, realizing that maybe he can actually live a normal life there. The bell rings, announcing the end of classes, and he reflects on how different the school's atmosphere is. All the fear he felt seemed unnecessary, and he admits to himself that he's happy he moved. Shortly after, Deal approaches his desk and asks if he has any plans later. Gil Su says no, and Deal invites him to hang out. At night, while walking through the city, Gil Su notices they've been walking for a while and decides to ask where they're going. Deal simply replies that there's a place he needs to see because every newcomer has to go through it. Gil Su thinks it sounds forced, but as he notices they're moving away from the city, he starts to reflect. Deal then asks if he's ever done boxing or has any fighting experience. Gil Su answers no. Laughing, Deal says he'll need courage for what's coming and that they should hurry since they're almost there. Only then does Gil Su notice that Deal has several scars on his body. The memories of all the schools where he was bullied come rushing back, and he starts fearing that Deal will attack him too. Overcome with fear, he stops walking and says he needs to leave. However, Deal grabs his shoulder, assuring him they're almost there and asking him to at least take a quick look. Unable to assert himself, Gil Su ends up following him to a warehouse. Upon arriving, he feels defeated and betrayed. Deal opens the door and sounds of shouting and cheering echo from inside. Scared, Gil Su closes his eyes, expecting the worst. But when he opens them slowly, he realizes he's standing before an underground fight event. The place is packed with students watching the fights. In shock, he sees one of the fighters take a powerful spinning hit, leaving him speechless. Deal laughs and comments that Gil Su must be surprised, saying, "Welcome to the school's fight arena." The school's fight arena reveals itself before Gil Su, and he watches as fighters help each other after the matches. Surprised, he hears a voice calling Deal from above the arena. The man asks who the newcomer is. His name is Chung, the school president. Deal replies that Gil Su just transferred today. However, Gil Su thinks the guy looks way too old to be a student. Rock Lee then challenges Deal to get into the ring, saying he'll get revenge for mocking his cat paws hairstyle. Deal accepts the challenge without hesitation. Chung turns to Gil Su and says it's a pleasure to meet him. Gil Su is struck by the height difference between them. Chung welcomes him to the school as the students cheer excitedly when Deal and Rock start fighting. Gil Su, confused, asks why they're fighting if they're friends. Chung laughs and says the freshmen aren't so bad. Still perplexed, Gil Su tries to understand the situation. Chung then explains that this is the true face of the school. He states that there's no bullying there, only violence, but within specific rules. The main rule is that all fights must happen inside the arena. Gil Su is shocked. Chung stares at him and says he can tell Gil Su has been bullied constantly. He suggests that Gil Su release some of that stress there since inside the arena, everyone is equal in the face of violence. Gil Su's eyes widen in surprise. Chung continues, saying he doesn't like complicated explanations and will only say this once, so Gil Su better pay attention. Rule number 1. Only 6 gate students can enter. After graduation, expulsion, or dropping out, entrance is forbidden. Rule number 2. Fights are always one-on-one and weapons aren't allowed. Rule number 3. Members of the guidance council act as referees. Suddenly, a voice stands out from the crowd. It's the boy from the cafeteria calling out to Gil Su and asking where he's been. Gil Su immediately remembers him. The boy says he wants to fight to make up for the cleaning fee. Chung comments that it looks like he already has an opponent and that he'll learn through practice. Rule number 4. Any kind of violence outside the arena arena is prohibited. If someone has a problem with another person, they must settle it inside the ring. The final rule is simple: just have fun and don't be afraid inside the arena. Gil Su thinks to himself, not understanding how he could ever enjoy this. The referee raises his hand, signaling the start of the fight. Gil Su looks at his opponent and feels intimidated. His instincts, honed after 3 years of being bullied, scream at him to run. The students continue to cheer, and some comment that the new kid was really unlucky to have been chosen by Kangan. He is famous for his brutality. Kangan looks at Gil Su and asks if he's not going to make the first move. He says he's giving him an advantage since it's his first fight. However, Gil Su is paralyzed with fear, unable to react. Seeing this, Kangan smiles and says that if Gil Su will take the chance, then he will. He lunges forward. Gil Su starts trembling, tears welling up in his eyes. The spectators' excitement turns into pure disgust. Everyone watches in disbelief as Gil Su covers himself in vomit and hay. Kangan realizes what happened, and while the students burst into laughter, asks for a towel or something to help. Gil Su, humiliated and defeated, mutters that he's never thrown a punch in his life and that he can't do this. The scene cuts to the school bathroom. Some students talk about the arena fight, calling it embarrassing. Gil Su sits inside a stall, overhearing everything, and concludes that he's completely screwed. He thought it was a normal school, but realizes it's far from it. Even though Chung told him to have fun, he knows he never will. He already imagines what will happen the next day, but since he can't be bullied anymore, he figures he just has to push through. The scene shifts again. Chung is doing push-ups with 2 students on his back. He reaches 999, struggles with the last rep, but manages to hit 1,000. Gil Su watches, perplexed, and asks how he can possibly be a high school student. Chung looks at Gil Su and asks if he has something to say. Gil Su hesitates, but then mentions he has a question about the fight arena. Chung teases, asking if he has any skills besides vomiting. Gil Su ignores the joke and says that he really can't fight in the arena. The students around them fall silent, surprised. Chung asks why, pointing out that he didn't even get hurt in the previous fight. Gil Su lowers his head and admits he has no confidence. He says he doesn't hate anyone and doesn't see any fun in fighting. In fact, he doesn't even understand the purpose of the arena. He asks if he can simply not participate. Chung puts his hand on Gil Su's shoulder and says that means he can beat him up as much as he wants now. Gil Su, confused, asks what he means. Without directly answering, Chung declares that as the school president, he's announcing that Gil Su is no longer protected by the arena. School life continues as usual, but Gil Su fears what might happen. His fears come true when Kangan shows up, saying he heard about his decision not to participate in the arena. Without warning, he grabs Gil Su and slams his face against the desk. Laughing, he says he's going to teach him what that means at this school. He declares that he needed a slave, and now Gil Su belongs to him. The other students completely ignore the scene as Gil Su is punched in the face. Kangan praises his own strength, and one of the students comments that he heard Gil Su transfer because of bullying. One of Kangan's friends laughs and says it makes total sense since Gil Su is such a coward. He then orders Gil Su to come to his class during every break. Gil Su starts crying as the beating continues in the back of the classroom. The scene shifts to the teacher's office. We hear Gil Su talking to a teacher, saying he plans to drop out of school. He explains that he's preparing for it and will just take the exam to get his diploma. With a defeated look, he says he's done everything he could. Softly, he apologizes to his family, lamenting that he's such a useless son. Leaving school, he passes through the gate, reflecting that his school life is over. However, he's stopped by Chung, who stares at him and asks why he's not fighting. He demands an explanation. Gil Su hesitates but eventually lowers his head and says he's sorry. He claims that someone obsessed with fighting like Chung could never understand how he feels. He admits he has trauma from violence, suffered severe bullying, and now just wants to give up because he's tried everything. Chung puts his hand on his shoulder and declares that he's even more pathetic than he thought. Gil Su, confused, asks what he means. Without responding, Chung starts walking toward him. Chung asks who said he has to fight like a pro. He says that if Gil Su doesn't have teeth, he should use his gums. If he doesn't have strength, he should use courage. That's what it really means to fight. He grabs Gil Su by the collar and asks if he doesn't even want to protect himself. Gil Su starts crying, wondering what he did wrong. Chung then asks if he thinks the outside world is all sunshine and rainbows. He says that if Gil Su keeps acting like this, he'll be a loser for the rest of his life. Gil Su walks home, muttering that Chung would never understand because he's never been weak. He's tired and wants to give up, but then Harem appears, grinning mockingly. He says he heard that Gil Su won't be going to school anymore starting tomorrow. Laughing, he asks how he could leave without saying goodbye. Threateningly, he adds that if Gil Su leaves, who will be his punching bag? Since Chung created the fight arena, he hasn't had any slaves, so he needs someone to vent his frustrations. He says Gil Su is wrong if he thinks everything will end by quitting school. He orders him to follow. The scene cuts to a dark alley where the bullies beat up Gil Su. Lying on the ground, Gil Su feels like he's about to die and just wishes they would stop. He then comments that he should consider himself lucky. If it were back when Kangan's older brother was at the school, he'd already be dead. Suddenly, Ha asks if the address he received is correct. Gil Su, confused, wonders what he's talking about. Ha laughs and says he can't believe Gil Su lives in such a nice house. He then reads out his address aloud. He declares that next time they'll visit him at home. He laughs again. Gil Su suddenly stands up and demands to know what he plans to do at his house. Ha just orders him to stay still or he'll take a picture and send it to everyone. Completely desperate, Gil Su wonders what he did so wrong to deserve this. He really thought it was finally over and that he had escaped this hell. But the moment he thought he was free, he was dragged back in. He remembers Chung's words, fighting isn't just about strength, and he realizes how much of a coward he's been for not even trying to protect himself. The bullies grab his face, and he screams in pain. He laughs and mocks him, telling the others to hold him tighter. In his desperation, Gil Su shouts again, "Why? What did I do wrong?" In a sudden move, he knocks Ha's phone to the ground, cracking the screen. Ha looks at the phone shocked. Without thinking, Gil Su bites Ha's hand as hard as he can. Ha screams in pain while Gil Su mutters that since he's weak, he'll do whatever it takes to fight. He says he'll resist with everything he has. Ha, furious, punches Gil Su in the face, knocking him down. But to everyone's shock, Gil Su gets up again. Ha, stunned, mutters that he's gone crazy. Gil Su, panting, replies that he's pretty sure he has. Ha looks down, noticing the determination in Gil Su's eyes. Gil Su then says that if he's going to die, he'll take it down with him. Ha laughs, surprised, and comments that even a cornered rat will bite. He asks if Gil Su is ready to keep going. The other two bullies move in on him, but Gil Su doesn't back down. He grabs a handful of dirt from the ground and throws it into their eyes, shouting at them to get lost. The attackers retreat furious. He realizes that Gil Su picked up the dirt when he fell. Without wasting time, he yells at the others to chase him. Gil Su runs, not knowing exactly where he's going. Somehow, his feet lead him back to the fight arena. The door opens and Chung looks surprised to see Gil Su entering. With determination in his eyes, he declares, "I'm going to do this." The surrounding students are shocked by his return. Gil Su then announces that he wants to enter the fight arena. The bullies who were chasing him stop at the door. Chung watches the scene and smiles. He says that Gil Su is more interesting than he imagined. Already inside the ring, Gil Su prepares to fight. One of Ha's friends steps forward and says he will be the one to face the nerd. His name is Park Yongo. Another companion warns him to lower his voice because Chung is present. Yongo responds that he knows and it's always necessary to be careful. Gil Su takes a punch to the face, followed by a knee to the stomach, and receives another blow to the face. Kang asks if he really thought he could do anything in a fight and hits him again, making him lose balance. Then he lifts his leg and kicks Gil Su in the face, saying he'll teach him how to behave. Laughing, he asks how he feels now, claiming he surely regrets it. Gil Su glares at Kang with anger, which irritates him. Ordering him to lower his eyes, Kang slaps him repeatedly, insulting him with each hit. He says a loser should act like one and that this isn't a webtoon. Then he performs his spinning kick, sending Gil Su sprawling across the floor. The students comment on how intense the fight is and wonder if Gil Su broke something. Kang, still excited, hopes he's not dead. Gil Su tries to get up, but Kang is surprised, saying he should already be unconscious. He orders him to stop pretending to be tough, warning he might end up dead. Gil Su asks how, claiming this doesn't even compare to the pain he has already faced. He lunges forward, landing a punch that knocks Kang to the ground. The students react in shock, calling him Vomit Boy, and commenting that he has some tricks up his sleeve. Kang admits he was caught off guard. Gil Su screams and goes for another punch but gets hit first. Kang mocks him, asking how such slow punches could do any damage. At that moment, Gil Su remembers Chung's words and suddenly headbutts Kang, making his nose bleed. The students cheer, saying this is more fun than they imagined. Chung observes that even though the adrenaline is numbing the pain, Gil Su is clearly injured but shows impressive resilience. Kang kicks him away, making him fall to the ground. Wiping blood from his face, he asks if Gil Su has a death wish. Still, Gil Su gets up, determined to continue. He wonders if it was always like this, if the gangs he feared were really that strong. The students start chanting his name. Clenching his teeth, he charges at Kang, throwing a punch in one-punch style but is stopped by an uppercut. His consciousness fades as Kang declares he won't be caught off guard again. Gil Su passes out and Kang is declared the winner. Later that night, Gil Su wakes up unsure if he had passed out. Despite this, he feels proud for having defended himself, remembering he managed to land a hit. However, he regrets not staying calm and starts reflecting on what he could have done to win. If only he were a bit stronger. Suddenly, Chung appears beside him and asks if his mind is clearer now. Gil Su looks around, realizing they're alone, and asks if Chung came for him. Chung replies that as president, it's his duty to ensure no one gets seriously hurt since the arena exists to protect students. He reminds Gil Su that what happened was an exception, and that from now on he's no longer allowed to enter since he's about to leave the school. Chung starts to walk away, but Gil Su stops him, asking what he should do. Chung frowns, wondering what he means. Determined, Gil Su declares he won't quit school, and begs Chung to tell him what he needs to do to get stronger. He explains that everything started because of a flying slipper that accidentally hit someone. At first, it seemed like nothing would happen, but then the other students exchanged exchanged looks and began beating him, demanding money. He had been marked as weak. They laughed, saying people like him needed to be beaten, and kicked him mercilessly. Gil Su recalls how it all began but decides he can't give up. Chung smiles, saying it's also his responsibility as president to train the weak. He approaches Gil Su and asks if he's ready. Without warning, he punches Gil Su in the stomach. Gil Su spits blood and screams in pain. Chung comments that it must hurt like hell but warns this is just the beginning. He promises to make him strong enough to withstand his punches. The next day, Gil Su still feels intense pain and wonders how strong Chung really is. He remembers Chung telling him to look for him during breaks. Gil Su wonders if this training will truly make him stronger. Gil calls out to him, asking if he wasn't going to quit. Gil Su replies that he changed his mind. Gil comments that he must like the arena, joking that he has the guts to keep going. Suddenly, Kang appears. Gil Su lifts his head upon hearing him call him a punching bag. He knows how strong it is. Kang says he didn't expect to see him back and asks if he wants revenge but warns him to know his place or he might end up dead next time. They walk in opposite directions. Gil notices that Gil Su is trembling with rage. Determined, Gil Su decides he'll become strong enough to never lose to bastards like Kang again. On the rooftop, we see Gil Su getting punched in the face and then in the stomach by Chung. Chung tells him to keep his eyes open and follow his fists. He also forbids him from fighting until the training is complete. Gil Su protests, asking how this can even be called training, as he squeezes his eyes shut tightly. Several days pass since the training started. He takes hit after hit. A left hook lands, followed by a kick that sends him flying. He complains that this feels more like a one-sided beating than actual training. Meanwhile, in the ring, Kang looks down at his completely defeated opponent. People comment that he's been ruthless since his fight with Gil Su and that his ego is bruised. They joke that his weaknesses are headbutts and vomit. Irritated, Kang challenges anyone to fight him if they think he has a weakness. His opponent apologizes and backs off. Kang storms through the crowd, calling them idiots. He asks his friends if they've seen Gil Su today. They say no, mentioning that he hasn't been showing up during breaks and has been avoiding the arena. They suggest it seems like he's rejecting the arena. Kang has a moment of realization, thinks about Chung, and then smiles, saying he has an idea to beat up some losers. That night, Gil Su runs on the track, completely exhausted. He remembers all the beatings he's taken and wonders if this training method will really make him stronger. Still, he decides he needs to push harder to reach his goals. Suddenly, a motorcycle approaches and brushes against his shoulder. The rider stops and complains that Gil Su scratched his bike. He gets off, saying they need to discuss the matter and demands compensation for repairs. Gil Su asks how he expects him to come up with that kind of money, pointing out that it was the rider who hit him. The man grabs his hair, calls him a loser, and punches him, accusing him of trying to scam him. His friends laugh, claiming they saw everything and that Gil Su ran right into the bike. Confused, Gil Su asks what's going on, but the man keeps talking and demands an answer. Gil Su realizes he isn't afraid. The man insists he should hand over all the money he has. Then Gil Su remembers that he's been taking beatings from a real monster this whole time. He knocks the man's hand away and punches him in the face with his left hand, asking why he should pay when he isn't even scared of him. The man grabs his wrist and mocks him, asking if that was supposed to be a punch. Gil Su wonders why his hit had no effect and realizes he is still weak. The others watch in surprise as he starts spinning his arms wildly and shouts, admitting that he never actually learned how to fight, only how to take a beating. The aggressor laughs and kicks him, asking if he's putting on a comedy show. His friends laugh, saying he looks like a windmill or someone trying to swim. The man then puts on brass knuckles, smiling maliciously, and orders his friends to hold Gil Su tightly. He warns that after this beating, Gil Su will learn how to behave. He tells him to clench his teeth and goes in for the punch. But before he can land the blow, someone appears out of nowhere and knees him in the face. The aggressor stumbles back and Gil Su looks on in shock, recognizing his savior, Deal. Deal laughs upon realizing the person he saved was Gil Su. One of the thugs charges at him, but Deal dodges the attack and counters with a left hook to the face. Another comes at him with a wooden plank, but Deal blocks it with his arm and lands another punch. A girl who was with them screams when she sees her friends knocked out and complains that they left her alone. Gil Su watches Deal fight, impressed by his strength, realizing he thought Deal was just a regular guy. The girl then threatens Deal, asking if he knows who they are. She claims they are part of the strongest first years at D-Line High School. Sanel, one of Deal's friends, tells her to give up, that it doesn't matter. If they call more people, it will only get worse for them. He reveals he's from 6 Gates High and says he found it odd the loser was acting that way, but now they mess with the wrong person. The aggressors quickly jump on their bikes and flee. Deal clicks his tongue, calls them idiots, and then turns to Gil Su, asking how he got involved with them. A little later, Gil Su explains about his special training with Chung. Deal is surprised and comments that Gil Su must be really serious about fighting. Gil Su confirms but admits he's still too weak and was just training his endurance when he was attacked. Deal laughs for calling Gil Su throwing punches in the air and says it was quite a spectacle. He praises his courage for not showing fear, but warns that he still doesn't have enough strength to fight multiple people at once. Deal explains that if it were him, he would have dodged the hit and countered. But he also confesses he envies Gil Su for being chosen by Chung. He adds that for someone who rejected the arena, it's important to get used to the environment. After all, the school is unique. Gil Su then recalls Sanel saying they messed with the wrong person and asks Deal why the thugs ran away when they found out he was from Six Gates. Deal laughs and says it's obvious, that school is famous. Gil Su asks why, and Deal explains that Six Gates has a long history of school violence. In the past, it was like a jungle and things got out of control. Gil Su comments that it doesn't seem that way now. Deal agrees and says that's thanks to Chung. He conquered the school and created the fight arena with his own rules. Over time, the school became more organized since the arena became an alternative way to release pent-up anger. But if the arena or Chung disappears, the rules will lose their meaning. Who knows when everything will return to the chaos it once was? Besides, there are still people who want things to go back to the old ways. In the arena, a student falls to the ground defeated. Yongo mocks at him, asking if that's all he's got. He points at another person and orders him to get in the ring, saying he chose him just because he doesn't like his face. The student hesitates and Yongo asks if he's refusing to fight. Kang's group laughs, commenting that Yongo is on fire today. Kang, on the other hand, calls them losers and says they need to learn their place. Yongo steps forward and lands a left hook on his opponent's face, followed by a right punch. The opponent tries to ask for a break, but Yongo ignores him and prepares a final kick, saying it's way too easy. Kang then stands up and orders everyone to clear the way, saying he wants to have some fun too. He says that some people just talk and never step into the ring. He announces he'll teach those cowards a lesson. Back to the present, it's Kang's turn to fight. The students wonder who he'll choose, and he points at one of the students who is talking about him. He orders him to get into the ring immediately. The boy, surprised, asks why he was chosen, since they don't even know each other. Kang replies that he doesn't need a reason. He just got in a bad mood looking at him. He grabs him by the collar and asks if he plans to refuse the challenge and end up like Gil Su. At that moment, Chung enters the arena, visibly irritated. He stares at Kang and asks what's going on. Kang, unfazed, replies that he just issued a fight request, but there was a misunderstanding. He then challenges Chung, asking if there's a problem with that, pointing out that he didn't break any rules. Back in the past, he is with his friends and they ask what his plan is. He says that Gil Su got himself into trouble by being the first in the school to say no to the combat arena. As long as you have arms and legs, anyone can fight in the arena. Everyone is equal in the face of violence, and these are the school's rules. They can brag about it, but if you look closely, you'll realize they're cowards who only enjoy watching the fights without ever participating because, deep down, they're all losers. His friends agree, saying they're having fun too, but that idiot Gil Su exposed the situation. They wonder what would happen if they challenged those who had been beating others until now. Yongo replies that they would be forced to fight so they wouldn't end up like Gil Su. Kang agrees and says the arena will now be their playground. Back in the present, and asks Chung what's going on, saying he didn't break any rules. Chung tells him to stop pretending to be brave, and laughs, apologizing for the confusion and saying that next time, he'll choose more carefully. On the rooftop, Chung is landing a series of blows on Gil Su, finishing with a kick. Gil Su says he feels like he's going to die, but manages to balance himself and block a hit, saying he's not as scared as before. Chung responds that he's getting used to the punches. Gil Su tries to counterattack, but Chung dodges and Gil Su says that if he wants to win, he needs to land a punch. He keeps attacking without any real plan, and Chung starts getting irritated, slapping him and telling him to shut up. Gil Su replies that it hurt more than usual, and Chung tells him that he needs to learn how to really fight. If he does, he could even win a fight in the game room. At the arcade, Gil Su says the place is old and asks why they're there. He opens the door and sees a bald man, whom some might recognize as Bob. Chung tells him to raise his fists to his chin, tuck his chin in, and position his feet shoulder-width apart, slightly on his toes. He instructs Gil Su to throw a jab, a light punch, and for the straight punch, to rotate his hips, shoulders, and use his legs to generate power, maximizing the impact. Gil Su says the punch sounded like a gunshot, but insists it's his turn now. He throws an awkward jab and then a straight punch, saying he's getting the hang of it, but when he looks at the score, he realizes it hasn't changed. Chung says the machine is broken, so unless the punch has real impact, it won't register. He needs to hit harder to damage the opponent. Chung tells him to find his own way of fighting and not to show himself until he achieves the highest score. The scene shifts to when he's on the phone and his girlfriend says they should stop seeing each other. He wonders why she's acting like this again. He bumps into Yongo and apologizes, but Yongo throws him to the ground, causing his phone to fall and break. Yongo says he did mean to bump into him, but Rock responds that it was clearly on purpose. Yongo says that, judging by his look, he seems to have a problem and suggests settling in the arena. Rock looks a bit scared and nervously says it was his fault. Yongo laughs, and the others comment that it was really an accident and not school violence. Then Yongo tells him to be more careful next time. Deal picks Rock up and suggests reporting the incident, but Rock tells him to drop it, saying it's not worth making a fuss. Deal looks irritated. In the cafeteria, Gil Su is eating frantically, saying he's starving and can't increase his score, asking what he should do. Yongo apologizes and dumps food on Gil Su's head, laughing. He says he hadn't seen him around and wondered where he had been disappearing to, then slaps his back, saying he missed him. He keeps hitting him, saying it's good to see him after so long and asking if he feels the same, with malice in his eyes. We see Kang and Yongo talking outside the cafeteria about how they just bullied Rock and got away with it. Kang says it's time do the same to Gil Su and show him what happens when he messes with them. Yongo says he'll handle it, telling Kang not to get involved and to trust him. Gil Su grabs Yongo's hand and Yongo says he's learned to resist now, calling him cute and he's angry. Gil Su is furious, but Chung has banned him from the arena until he finishes his training. He says he has no choice but to obey. Gil tells Yongo to shut up, saying he's trying to eat, and then throws his food tray at Yongo. Gil says you shouldn't bother a dog when it's eating. Gil Su is surprised by this. Gil tells him he needs to know his place. Yongo asks if Gil has gone crazy and Gil replies that it's not school violence, laughing as he says his hand simply slipped, but that he wanted to fight anyway. He tells Yongo that this is good and that he will teach him a lesson in the arena tonight. We see Gil washing his clothes while Gil Su, now in uniform, thanks him for helping. Gil says he didn't do it for Gil Su, and although it may seem like it, he just wants to teach a lesson since he's tired of seeing people behaving wrongly in the arena. He admits he hasn't been there for a while, so he doesn't know exactly what's going on. Gil Su asks what's happening, and Gil explains that they've been intentionally picking the weakest students and attacking them in the arena. When the students get scared, they use Gil Su as an example, but since he hasn't had a chance to fight them yet, this is good because now he can protect the arena. Gil Su wonders why Gil wants to protect the arena, saying that if he's so strong, the arena shouldn't matter to him. He asks if there's a reason behind it. Gil reveals that he went through a dark phase just like Gil Su. A flashback shows him urinating into a pot filled with other things, while a bully tells him it's a new pig drink and orders him to open his mouth. We see a chubbier, timid version of Gil. The bully holds his mouth, forcing him to drink, but suddenly a large hand grabs the bully, telling him to be nice to his friend. Someone had saved Gil. Gil thanks the man, saying he doesn't know who he is. The man hands him a flyer and asks if he wants to try boxing as a way to lose weight. It turns out the man was the owner of a boxing gym. After that, Gil tried boxing for the first time and became obsessed with it. We see him progressively losing weight and transforming through boxing. He knocks the bully to the ground and the others try to apologize, realizing they can't mess with him anymore. Even those who acted like bullies were just weak inside. Gil Su is surprised, realizing that Gil used to be bullied. Gil laughs, saying that the arena's rules made by Chung are a bit extreme, but he likes that people have the freedom to fight and choose their opponents. He says he's going to defeat Yongo and asks Gil Su to watch. That night in the arena, the two face off. Yongo says he doesn't know where Gil suddenly got all this courage. Gil asks if he came to talk or to fight, telling him to stop talking and get started. Yongo smirks, saying Gil looks ready to fight. Gil Su wishes Gil good luck. The referee starts the match. Yongo opens with a jab, but Gil blocks it, surprising him. Yongo throws more jabs, but Gil easily dodges them all. Yongo retaliates with his own punches, landing one on Gil. The spectators are shocked at Gil's speed. Yongo notes that Gil is faster than he expected and wonders if he's purely a boxer. Gil starts pushing forward, backing Yongo up with jabs. Yongo comments that Gil may be fast, but his punches are too weak. He counters with a powerful punch, claiming he's stronger, but Gil blocks it. Gil throws another jab, Yongo dodges and tries an uppercut, but it was a trap. Gil counters with his own uppercut, complimenting Yongo on the attempt. Yongo realizes he was tricked. Gil Su is amazed, realizing Gil is dominating the fight and that Yongo hasn't landed a solid hit yet. The crowd starts wondering if Gil was always this strong and notes that Yongo might lose his undefeated record. Gil Su is shocked to learn Yongo is undefeated. Yongo throws a right overhand, misses, a left hook, misses, another right, and misses again. He starts losing his composure, frustrated that he can't land a single punch. Gil taunts him, laughing and asking if Yongo really thought those punches would land. He hits Yongo with a jab, saying that light punches need to connect before heavy ones can. Gil lands a straight punch, sending Yongo to his knees. Gil mocks him, saying he talks too much but can't back it up, and tells him to stop bothering people and leave the arena. Yongo looks over at Kang, smiling, telling him not to worry because he's not done yet. Yongo admits that Gil is better at boxing but claims he'll fight fairly from now on. Gil Su is surprised as Yongo raises his leg towards Gil, adopting a Muay Thai stance, declaring that it's time to start the real fight. Gil recognizes Yongo's stance, noting that he plans to use a kick. He charges forward, head low, saying he can land 2 hits, and does so towards Yongo. Yongo grimaces in pain, wondering why Gil's leg feels so firm as his kick was blocked. He attempts to strike, but Gil creates distance. Yongo doesn't lose momentum, charging directly at him. Seeing Gil preparing another kick, Yongo blocks with his arm but instantly regrets it, feeling as if he's been hit by a steel post being thrown across the ring. He wonders why Gil is so strong, realizing that even though he blocked, the damage was immense. Yongo comes forward with another kick and Gil raises his hands to block, but we see his arm bone fracture. Gil Su shouts his name as the sound of the break echoes through the arena. Gil backs away and Yongo laughs, taunting him to come at him like before, asking if he's scared. Gil wonders why Yongo's kicks are so powerful, far beyond the strength of his punches, realizing that another hit could be dangerous. Lost in thought, Gil gets punched in the face and then is hit by a flurry of punches in a Dragon Ball Z style sequence. Yongo laughs, happy that his punches are finally landing. Gil realizes he's too focused on Yongo's kicks, preventing him from reacting properly. Yongo insults him, reminding him that he was the one who said not to ruin the fight arena, questioning who he thinks he is. A low kick knocks Deal to the ground. Yongo continues taunting, saying Deal is too weak to lecture anyone. Unable to stand, Deal watches helplessly as Yongo prepares for his soccer-style kick to his head, saying goodbye. Just as the kick lands, the referee blocks it with his shin. This leg's made of steel. The referee, Jun, says, if your opponent can't fight anymore, going further is a foul. Yongo laughs, saying they were just getting started, but he had fun for the first time in a while. He looks at Gil Su, remarking that maybe that's why some old faces are back. As Gil Su makes eye contact, Yongo laughs harder, saying the arena will get even more fun, so he should come often. Later, Gil Su helps Deal walk. Gil Su asks if it hurts much. Deal says that more than the pain, he's just frustrated for losing and boosting their egos. Gil Su notes that Deal was winning at first, but everything changed when the kick started. Deal agrees, saying Yongo's kicks were much stronger than expected, but something felt off about that last kick, though he can't figure out what. They arrive at their destination and Deal thanks Gil Su for helping him, offering water before they leave. Gil Su declines, saying he has something to do. Deal is curious, watching Gil Su run off, wondering where he's headed at this hour. Cut to a classroom where Kang looks at the ugliest pair of shoes imaginable, asking why they're there. One of the guys says their gang wanted to show appreciation. Kang replies that he values talent over gratitude. They agree, promising to do their best. Yongo enters, saying he doubts Gil Su will show up at school today. Kang stands, asking what he means. Yongo says it's probably time to beat him now. Kang puts a hand on Yango's shoulder, saying things have changed because of him. Yongo looks confused as they walk. Kang explains that by defeating Deal, they proved their strength, scaring those who thought they were weaker. Touching Gil Su now would only ruin their reputation. One guy asks about the next plan, suggesting spreading flyers to recruit people. Kang says no, explaining they've beaten the freshmen as planned and it's time for the next step. They cut to some men smoking outside, introduced as some Shoku. They ask who the newcomers are. Bose replies they came to meet them. Shoku laughs, dismissing them as freshmen, calling them kids. Kang responds, saying they probably look that way to him since Shoku was part of a legendary generation with his brother. Shoku realizes who Kang's brother is. Kang points out that since Chung sidelined them, they've been hiding like old men. Shoku grabs Kang by the throat, calling him arrogant. Kang replies he's just disappointed, feeling like they've been fighting alone, that things have changed now. Shoku questions him, and we cut to Hang talking to Chung. Hang insists they need to intervene in the fight arena, saying letting them abuse the rules will destroy its foundation. He brings up Kang's older brother, Hai. Chung says the rules are the rules, even if they've been abused. Hang asks if he'll just stand by. Chung replies that even if he steps in and fixes things, the arena won't be the same. Hang reflects, realizing Chung is right. Chung's phone rings. It's Gil Su, calling from the arcade. Chung reminds him that he said not to call until he scored some points, asking if he gave up. Gil Su says that's exactly why he called. We see the punching machine covered in blood with a score over 99,999. Gil Su tells Chung to teach him, saying he's ready for the next lesson. Meanwhile, we see Gil Su running towards the game club, thinking about Yongo. He says he needs to hurry and get stronger, then slaps Bob as we see him going all out on the poor mannequin. Gil Su says this is the only thing he can do as he has nothing else, and he's pushing himself even with his weak punches. If he punches these machines tens of thousands of times, he'll surely be able to do it. He remembers Chung saying he needs to hit hard enough for the machine to register the punch. Only then will it prove he can cause damage to an opponent. Lacking weight and strength, it would be better to widen his stance to put more power into the punch, which he does, allowing for a full motion swing. He hits Bob right in the face and we hear a loud noise. We see that he managed to score 3 points and the count keeps rising, passing 20, then 134, slowly climbing higher and higher until it surpasses 4,000. Now his fists begin to bleed, the skin tearing until he finally hits the 99,999 points we saw before. He tells Chung to teach him. Chung smiles, saying that was faster than he expected, and Gil Su replies that he had no choice since he doesn't have time to waste. Chung says that's good, and now they can move on to the next stage, but it will be much harder, so he needs to be prepared. As he says this, Gil Su's head drops onto his chest, and Chung starts smiling, saying that rest is also part of training, while we see that Gil Su has passed out. The next night, we see Yongo asking if this is everyone at the fight club. He says not even half the usual people are there, asking if everyone is scared. We hear a man asking who's scared as he steps forward. It's a second-year student council member named Choi. He says he thinks he needs to educate the freshmen. Yongo looks a bit surprised, and Choi says he hated the driving tattoo on Yongo's arm since he first saw it, and that's reason enough for them to fight. He'd been looking for fights over silly reasons like that all the time. Yongo looks a bit tense, and we see Hang saying they can't just sit back anymore. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The arena door starts opening and we hear Shoku asking what's up with this atmosphere. He heard rumors that their fight club has been fun lately, so he came to visit. Hang looks surprised and Shoku says he didn't expect to see a second year trying to fight a freshman. He wonders if he needs to spice things up a bit. Hang walks towards him, asking how he dares to come here. Shoku replies that he came because he's also a member of the high school. Hang tells him to stop spouting nonsense, since he caused an incident before but now shows up as if nothing happened. Shoku says they can forget about what happened in the past. We hear him asking why Hang is being so uptight, saying there are fewer people here, so it's good to have new faces joining, asking if Hang agrees. Hang clearly doesn't agree and then asks why he's so scared and laughs at him. Cut to a construction site and Gil Su wonders what kind of training he's about to. Gil Su is in a really dark place and says it's so gloomy that it feels like a ghost will pop out from somewhere. Chung responds that he needs to find his way properly. Gil Su asks what kind of training he's going to do, and Chung asks if he's ever heard of the old Six Gates School. He explains that the schools in the Jongyang area used to compete for the title of the strongest, and the school that won with an overwhelming victory was theirs. After Six Gates dominated the territory, the other schools dispersed back to their original areas. Gil Su wonders what this has to do with him, and Chung says that where he's sitting now is the territory of Jining Technical School. Although school fights don't happen anymore, if members of another school invade their territory, it's treated as a clear provocation. Gil Su is completely shocked, and then Chung slams the door hard and starts locking it, saying that the door on the other side is open, so he should try to get out on his own. Chung says there's no better experience than a real fight. Gil Su starts shouting at him, asking what he's doing, and soon we hear a motorcycle approaching. He gets worried, and a man asks who's making so much noise in his territory. Gil Su recognizes the man as soon as he gets off the bike, and we see it's none other than Sanel from before, who also recognizes Gil Su. He says he knew he heard that school name somewhere before, and Sanel replies that Gil Su must know the situation now is different from last time. He's really happy to see him here and starts laughing. He also says Gil Su must be fearless to come here alone. Sanel starts putting on his brass knuckles, just like before, and Gil Su says nothing. Sanel grabs the back of Gil Su's head and asks if he's scared since he's just standing there. Then Sanel realizes that Gil Su is mumbling something and starts rubbing his brass knuckles on his face, telling him to speak up before he breaks his jaw. We start to hear what Gil Su is mumbling, and he says, "Raise my fist to chin level, keep my feet shoulder width apart, and take light steps." Then he throws a jab, hitting Sanel directly in the face. He steps forward while still mentally reciting the steps to throw a proper punch. Sanel can only watch as the punch comes straight at him, hitting him much harder than any punch we've seen Gil Su throw. All of Sanel's friends are shocked to see him spitting blood, and Gil Su starts smiling, saying that it works now. Then we hear a man saying he lost while begging Shoku to let him go. Shoku replies that if he had known the fight arena was so much fun, he would have come earlier, and that he didn't realize the student council bastards were so weak. He refers to Troy, saying his mind is damaged. Meanwhile, we hear Hang warning not to overdo it when stepping into the ring. He suggests that Shoku face someone on his level before starting to brag. Shoku responds that, indeed, they have a lot to settle, dropping Troy to the ground and wondering what to do now that only his group and the student council remain. Everyone agrees he's right since even the few students still there had already left. The arena rules were completely ignored, and even Shoku, who used to keep a low profile, showed up. Most likely, the students left to avoid becoming targets. This apparently was exactly Kang's plan when he brought Shoku. Kang then suggests that if they really want to fight, they should set up a match in a proper place, not the arena since it's empty. He argues that he no longer needs to protect it. Hang starts getting irritated, but Shoku interrupts, telling him to listen carefully and make sure Chum knows too. This enrages Hang even more. Meanwhile, we see Sanctu taking a punch to the face. His friend runs toward him furious, asking how Gil Su dares to act that way on their turf. He throws a punch directly at Gil Su's face, but Gil Su doesn't even flinch. With a smile, Gil Su mocks him, saying those weak punches don't hurt at all. He then strikes his opponent in the stomach, sending him flying. Another enemy charges forward with provocative words, and Gil Su accepts the fight. However, he's much stronger and knocks the opponent away with a single blow. They start wondering what's going on, questioning if he's really the same person from before. A woman steps in, calling Gil Su an idiot and asking if he realizes what he just did. Behind her, even more men gather. She warns him that he's completely screwed. A strange-haired guy asks why someone from the Six Gates is there and suggests they finish him off. Gil Su starts getting nervous, realizing the number of enemies and concluding that facing them directly is impossible. He needs a plan. The woman laughs, asking if he finally understands the situation and if he's ready to be crushed. Suddenly, Gil Su jumps onto Cell's motorcycle and she reacts furiously, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing and telling him to stop. He realizes that if he can't fight them head-on, he needs to use a tool. The sound of the revving engine confuses the other students, and soon we see Gil Su barely sitting properly on the bike, struggling to control it. They start laughing, finding the scene pathetic and embarrassing. However, Gil Su lets go of the bike on purpose, sending it crashing into the group, scattering them. He reveals that he never intended to ride it, he only needed a distraction. Taking advantage of the chaos, he punches the strange-haired guy in the face, knocking him aside. We learn the guy's name is Kung Suk. The others shout to capture Gil Su, who starts running as fast as he can. He thinks that if he can face them one-on-one, he might stand a chance. For a moment, he even misses the fight arena, but quickly realizes something. Even outside the arena, he still has a shot. He spots a long staircase and begins to climb. His enemies chase after him, and when they think they've cornered him, they see Gil Su standing at the top, daring them to come up. They laugh, saying he must have hit his head while running. With no other option, they charge at him, convinced there's no escape. But Gil Su surprises them by punching the first enemy square in the face, knocking him down. A second charges to avenge his friend, but also takes a strong hit and falls. Enemies begin falling over each other like bowling pins, and Gil Su smiles. He realizes that if he can face them one by one and maintain the high ground, it'll be much easier. The stairs make them lose momentum, and if he knocks them down, he can escape. Taunting them, he tells them to stop stalling and fight, urging them forward so he can defeat them and leave. But before he can react, a bowl of ramen flies at him, hitting him on the head. At the same time, a man grabs the railing, jumps, and kicks Gil Su in the face, sending him tumbling down the stairs into the crowd. The students cheer for their upperclassman, who angrily says he was just trying to enjoy his ramen when some Six Gates losers showed up. Gil Su, dazed, mumbles that he didn't expect anyone on the upper floors. Determined, he charges at the newcomer, who looks slightly surprised but doesn't hesitate. With a swift move, he knees Gil Su in the face, making him realize this guy is much stronger than the others. The upperclassman declares he'll give the students only 10 minutes to take Gil Su down and bring him over. The students immediately attack Gil Su from all sides. Still annoyed, the upperclassman complains about wasting his ramen and suddenly reduces the time to 5 minutes. Gil Su struggles to block the kicks and punches raining down on him, feeling the fight turn against him. Yet he starts to stand up despite his trembling body. He realizes that fighting here won't get him anywhere. Meanwhile, the upperclassman hears one of his men yelling, calling the freshman useless, and saying it takes all of them to handle a failure like Gil Su. At that moment, Gil Su launches himself down the stairs like a projectile, catching the upperclassman off guard. He grabs his head and slams it with a brutal headbutt. The upperclassman screams in pain as they both tumble down the stairs. The other students rush to help him, asking if he's okay. He struggles to his feet, pointing at Gil Su and ordering them to capture him immediately. He warns that if they fail, they're all screwed. Gil Su, while running, starts laughing, celebrating his escape. He just needs to reach the back exit. Suddenly, he spots the rear gate open, just like Chung had said. But before he can reach it, the sound of a motorcycle catches his attention. He turns around, surprised, trying to understand what's happening. Looking closer, he sees a man with green hair dragging Sanel across the ground while speeding on the bike. The stranger sneers, saying he can't believe his men are losing to a weakling like Gil Su. Then with a strange smile, he licks his lips and says he thinks Gil Su is cute because he likes adorable things. He then introduces himself as Haichin Huang, the head of the school. Gil Su watches the scene and wonders what kind of crazy person would drag someone with a motorcycle. Meanwhile, Wang comments that the rest finally arrived. Gil Su turns around and sees the same guys from before. Wang notices that they lost to Gil Su and mocks the situation. Sanel, on the verge of losing consciousness, is sprawled on the ground. Wang looks at his men and warns them that they will end up in the same state if they fail again. Desperate, they beg for a second chance. However, he just growls, saying that no one should touch his prey, surprising everyone. Gil Su concludes that this guy must be the boss of the place. He notices that Huang is shorter than him and less muscular than Chung, so maybe he has a chance to defeat him. Without wasting time, he decides to attack first. He remembers Chung's advice that the 1-2 combination works against any opponent and starts with a jab. However, Huang quickly dodges, assuming a grappler stance, and once again calls him cute for attacking first. He then performs a quick double-leg takedown. Gil Su realizes his mistake too late. Instead of just being knocked down, he is violently slammed to the ground with a brutal impact. Dazed and about to lose consciousness, he is caught by Huang, who smiles and says he can't let him pass out so quickly because he still wants to have some fun. In the blink of an eye, Huang lifts him again and throws him backward in a devastating suplex. Gil Su's head hits the ground hard, causing him to spit blood. He begins to think that he's going to die right there. The students who were watching burst into laughter, saying that Gil Su deserved it. However, a boy with purple hair reprimands them, telling them to shut up because once Huang is done, it will be their turn. Huang grabs Gil Su by the neck and asks if he's already passed out, demanding that he keep resisting. Suddenly, he receives a kick to the face. Gil Su, still dizzy, mumbles, asking how someone like Huang can call others cute when he himself looks like that. Instantly, Huang gets angry and demands to know why Gil Su called him cute. The purple-haired student whispers to the others that Gil Su might really die there. He explains that when Huang was younger, he was often mocked for his height, and that word should never be said in front of him. Not understanding what's going on, Gil Su prepares for another attack. However, before he can react, Huang grabs his body and murmurs that now he will fall for real because he's about to enter his hell. In seconds, Gil Su finds himself trapped in a triangle choke. He realizes that he can't move his arms or legs, and his breathing becomes increasingly difficult. Huang grins wickedly, thanking Gil Su for becoming his new prey. The purple-haired student watches and comments that this move is called the Hell Triangle Choke. Anyone caught in it cannot move and is completely defenseless. Huang strikes Gil Su's head repeatedly and demands that he say again that he's cute. Gil Su realizes that this fight is on a completely different level than anything he's ever faced before. For the first time, he feels like he could actually die. The spectators are stunned as they watch Gil Su lifting Huang into the air, resisting the hold. With a determined look, he declares that he refuses to fall there. Huang spins in the air and smiling responds that Gil Su is truly fun. He quickly changes his position to attempt a new choke, murmuring that he likes him and that from now on he belongs to him. Gil Su begins to gasp, struggling to breathe. Huang in turn mentions that the school's record is 7 seconds, and he wants to see how long Gil Su will last. Gil Su feels like he's about to pass out. In the back of his mind, he thinks that he never wants to lose to someone like this again. His muscles begin to fail, his legs lose strength, and with a satisfied laugh, Huang declares that now he's cute again. Holding Gil Su by the arm, he starts dragging him away, saying he's going to take him to keep playing. The students who were once terrified breathe a sigh of relief. Finally, it seems like Huang has lost interest in them. They whisper to each other that this might be the perfect opportunity to escape. As Gil Su is dragged across the ground, something unexpected happens. He opens his eyes. He explains that this is called the fainting game. Before being transferred, this was a game often played by his attackers. They would bet on how long he could resist, finding amusement in his suffering. Back then, the only way to survive was by pressing his pinky against the carotid artery, a resistance method that changed every week. Now with his vision blurred and feeling his strength fading, Gil Su feels around the ground and finds a stone. Huchin hears the noise and turns around, but it's already too late. The stone hits his face squarely, shattering upon impact. Huchin spits blood and stumbles. Taking advantage of the opening, Gil Su gets up and runs, believing he has finally escaped. He spots the gate and tells himself that he just needs to get through it. However, Huchin doesn't give him that chance. With a fierce look, he asks where he thinks he's going. Gil Su turns around and sees Huchin moving toward him as if nothing had happened. In disbelief, Gil Su thinks it's crazy that he's still moving after taking that rock to the face. The gate is so close, he can't fail now. Suddenly, a voice interrupts the scene. Chung finally takes action, declaring that enough is enough. Instantly, Huchin feels a chill at the intimidating presence of Chung. With a serious expression, Chung stares at him, showing a hint of irritation. He warns that any further attack will be treated as an assault against the 6 gates. Gil Su looks down and realizes that he's already left the school grounds. Huchin begins to hop on his feet, feeling a strange excitement in the situation. He comments that he suspected there was something different about Gil Su, but he didn't expect Chung to be there. And to his luck, Chung wants to fight him. With a wild smile, Huchin charges, declaring that the era of the 6 gates is over and now it's the time of Jining. Chung, however, does not respond with words. The only answer he gives is the devastating impact of his fist. The sound of the punch echoes like a gunshot. Gil Su is completely shocked as he watches Huchin being thrown backward, his teeth flying in the process. Chung watches the scene with disdain and says that, as expected, the students from Jining Technical haven't evolved at all. They'd only behave after being knocked out. Gil Su, still panting, lifts his head to look at Chung. Chung says that he's already passed the 2nd stage. Now only the last one remains. He orders Gil Su to go to the rooftop the next day. Gil Su looks at Chung with confidence. The next morning, however, he is not on the rooftop. Instead, he is at school calling someone to go to the arena after class. It seems he didn't get the last part of Chung's training. In a flashback, we see Yongo provoking Deal, questioning if his arm is really broken or if he's pretending out of fear of fighting again. He starts poking him, demanding that he say something, reminding him how much he boasted in the cafeteria. Then he pushes him down, mocking that he finally knows his place. Yongo steps on the cast and laughs, asking if the arm is really broken, claiming it was just an accident. Deal then questions if he really intends to break the school's rules. Yongo grabs him by the collar, laughing, and says that no one cares about the rules anymore since almost no one goes to the arena. Suddenly, Gil Su rushes in and blocks Yongo's punch, surprising him. Now the story aligns with the moment when Gil Su challenged Yongo to the arena, believing that there was no more time to train and that it was time to prove his worth. Yongo laughs when he sees him and calls him a vomit boy. Then he grabs his bandaged arm and asks if he's been training alone, assuming that he's trying to learn to defend himself. Gil Su quickly pushes his hand away, leaving Yongo surprised. He then challenges Yongo to another fight. Yongo laughs again, saying that he has no idea where all this courage came from, but it seems fun. He steps back, stating that it will be interesting and that he will show how the arena has been in recent days, telling Gil Su to look forward to it. Meanwhile, on a roof, Chung waits, not understanding why he was left waiting. Suddenly, the door bursts open and Jining enters, asking where he was the previous night and if he has any idea what happened in the fighting arena. Obviously, Chung doesn't know. Hang explains that Shoku showed up in the arena and warned him that if things continue as they are, things will only get worse. He insists that Chung must act quickly. However, Chung just smiles, finding it curious that Shoku appeared. Hang, irritated, asks why he doesn't seem worried about the arena, claiming it is about to collapse. Chung responds that if the arena is about to crumble over something so trivial, then it deserves that fate. He explains that the reason they were able to enjoy the arena was not because he kept it under control with strict rules, but rather the opposite. He compares the situation to a polluted river that purifies itself naturally. If the fighting arena changes only because of the power of a single person, then the situation will be different. But if it doesn't change, then it means it never had a real purpose. Back in the classroom, we hear Hane asking Yongo if he said that Gil Su wants to fight. Yongo laughs and confirms, saying that Gil Su suddenly went crazy and started showing off. He still mentions that Gil Su seems to be training because his arms were bandaged and assures that he will finish him off in the arena. Hannah thinks about the situation while Yongo watches him and asks why he looks so thoughtful, asking if there's a problem. Hannah responds that at this point, getting involved with a loser like Gil Su will bring no benefit to them, and that the focus should be on taking down Chung. Yongo laughs and assures that there's nothing to worry about, claiming that he will break one of Gil Su's arms so he can never get in their way again. He emphasizes that winning was expected, but the real question is what others will think after all the effort they put in to consolidate their power. In the arena, he needs to win flawlessly and must never lower his guard. He starts suffering from PTSD, a kid who vomits, and then says that if it's not something else, he's very persistent. Outside the school, Rock asks Gil Su what he was thinking, challenging him to a fight, saying he saw how that bastard is. Even Deal couldn't beat him, so how does he plan to do it? Gil Su realizes he acted on impulse and wonders if it's right to disobey Chung like this, especially since it's the last training session. Deal tells him to cancel it immediately. Even though he trained with Chung, it's still very dangerous to fight Yongo. He just transferred in so he doesn't know, but that bastard is the type of guy who does all sorts of dirty things with runaway boys outside the school. The result is as clear as day, so he should stay away, and when he recovers, he'll take care of it. Gil Su says no, he got hurt fighting to protect him in the first place, and what happened to him in the hallway this morning is something Gil Su is already used to. Being ignored and turned into a spectacle, like watching a clown show at the circus. He doesn't want to become like them, and his first opponent has to be Yongo. He wants to finish the fight he couldn't complete in the cafeteria. No matter how dangerous he is, he truly believes he's ready this time. Night falls, and some students are talking about how Gil Su has been doing special training. As we can see, many people are here to watch. This is the most packed event that has happened in days. Rock says it's the first time since they enrolled that there's so many people. Gil says that Gil Su's impact in the last two fights was huge, and the real fun of the fighting arena is that it doesn't matter if you're strong or weak, but whether you can face off. Yongo, in the ropes, says that Gil Su is late, and his friends start laughing, saying maybe he's afraid to fight. Yongo says it's better if he runs away, so they can finish him off outside the school. We see Chung watching, and some students start wondering when this will start, asking if this is a joke, telling them to go get Gil Su. Yongo laughs, saying everyone was tricked, and Gil Su will even show up, that he should just give up. Rock starts wondering if he's really not going to show up. They hear the door open, and Rock turns around as Gil Su asks why he should give up. Everyone is surprised to see that Gil Su shaved his head and says that only now does he feel like school is finally worth it. Yongo begins to hold back his laughter, but soon bursts out, eyes tearing up, and asks if he really thinks cutting his hair will change anything. All the other students laugh at him too, calling him crazy, and some even call him cringe. Chung smiles slightly, and Gil Su tells them to laugh as much as they want because they won't be able to laugh for long. Yongo says that Deal was also confident at first, and look how he was defeated. Gil Su says he's going to beat him up. Hank raises his hand, telling them to prepare as they begin to face off. Gil Su raises his fists and says that the old him is gone, and he plans to win this, even if he has to risk his life. Hang asks if they're ready, and Gil Su grits his teeth. Hang yells fight, and Gil Su rushes directly into the attack. He throws a jab, and Yongo blocks it, saying that he certainly has courage, but courage isn't the only thing that matters here, as he counters with a punch, hitting Gil Su directly in the face. Yongo says that he's going to make him regret choosing this stupid fight and calls him pathetic. He hits him with a wombo combo, pushing him to the other side of the ring and mocking his training with a punching bag. Then he lands a spinning elbow and a left punch to the face, showing that this isn't enough. He laughs and reminds him that this school is notorious for fights, so a few fight lessons won't help. Gil Su says that he's strong, his speed and power are on another level compared to those guys from the technical school. Gil Su prevents himself from being pushed back, but Yongo easily dodges with his hands behind his back and asks what he's doing. He starts laughing, telling him to actually try to hit him and knocks him down, saying that his punches are too slow. The spectators begin mocking Gil Su, saying he shouldn't just stand there taking the hits and should react, asking where all that initial courage went. Hank says that it's going exactly as he expected, and at this pace they'll only get more arrogant. Chung asks if that's really what he thinks, telling him to watch closely and see who's more focused on the fight, while Gil Su's eyes are fixed on Yongo. Yongo laughs, saying that he can certainly take a beating, and it's nice to have a human punching bag. Then he's surprised to see that Gil Su isn't even lifting his guard anymore. Gil Su says that his fight has just started, and his eyes are still full of confidence. On the roof, he told Chung that he wasn't actually going to make it to the final training session, session. He disobeyed the order not to enter the fighting arena until the training ended and impulsively challenged Yongo to a fight. He just couldn't hold back anymore. Chung says that they need to adjust the training plan and then starts running directly toward him. He says that an intensive course is the best way to substitute real training while raising his guard. He says that fighting him is all he needs. Gil Su gets hit in the stomach, sending him flying back, and wonders if Chung has gone crazy. Chung asks if he plans to just stand there and take a beating in the arena, telling him to react. Gil Su throws a punch, but Chung dodges and starts continuing with rapid punches to push Gil Su back. Chung says that his punches are too slow and weak, and that no one in that school will be beaten by those weak punches. Gil Su says he knows he won't get stronger with just a few sessions, but he still has to win. He throws a right punch this time, which sounds much heavier, like the time he hit Senel, and even he's surprised. Chung asks if he really wants to win, as we see that he didn't even try to block the hit and just took it. He tells him to lower his guard first. Back in the arena, Gil Su lets out a primal scream. Rock and Deal are surprised to see Gil Su coming with a series of punches directly toward Yongo. Deal asks if he gave up, saying that he shouldn't be swinging his fists around so recklessly. Doesn't make sense to train with Chung if he's just going to do this. Yongo laughs, asking if he's going to keep throwing random punches, and starts countering, asking if he thinks those punches will actually hit him. Gil Su slips from one of the punches, which grazes his cheek, and grabs Yongo, something he wasn't expecting. Yongo tries to push him away, asking what the hell he thinks he's doing. The students say this fight is boring and that he looks so pathetic, saying that if he's going to lose, he should at least do it with style. This is nothing but a one-sided beating from Yongo. Yongo grabs Gil Su's head and starts kneeing his face, telling him to stop fighting and just fall already. Gil Su says that this is good because everything is going according to plan. Back on the roof, Chung tells him that when he grabs the Necro body, he should lower his guard and restrict his opponent's movements. That's how his fight will start. He hits Gil Su directly on the side after doing exactly that, and says that it's hard to hit a moving target, but if the opponent stands still, it's much easier. He holds him there, landing quick punches. Gil Su responds with punches, and Chung says that this is a natural response. All he needs to do when that happens is hold on, just like he's been enduring the training so far. He keeps hitting, and Chung says that when the opportunity arises, he should land an even stronger blow directly to the stomach, making Gil Su slide off the side of the roof. Gil Su realizes he can't maintain his guard, but he gets distracted as Chung instantly closes the distance, coming in with another monstrous right. The speed is so great that Gil Su doesn't even have time to think about dodging, so he just stays there. Luckily, Chung stops before hitting his face, completely surprising Gil Su. Chung tells him not to try a direct hit right away and that he should throw his opponent into confusion so that he can't predict where his punches will land. Gil Su tightens his fists and hits Yongo directly on the side, saying that he needs to make this unpredictable. Yongo doesn't let it stop him and continues hitting him, but Gil Su also retaliates, now exchanging punches. Yongo makes a pained face, saying that this is really annoying as it seems to be having an effect. While he's lost in his thoughts, Gil Su keeps hitting him directly in the stomach. Some of the students say that this must hurt, calling it dirty boxing. Deal now realizes that he's closing in and attacking the body because he couldn't hit him in the face. Yongo also notices this and starts to retreat, creating distance. Gil Su says that with his guard down, there's now an opening, and he sees exactly where he needs to strike. He opens his stance and goes for a jab. Yongo dodges, saying that this tactic was too obvious. Chung also watches with anticipation and remembers how he told him that his training ends here because fights are full of unexpected variables. He can't win the fight just with what he's learned, so he should keep attacking his opponent relentlessly. Gil Su wanted him to dodge, and as soon as he grabs the back of Yongo's head, he realizes that the opportunity has finally arrived. Yongo understands that he's fallen into his trap, and Gil Su asks if he predicted this too, landing a heavy right, sending Yongo flying backward. Everyone in the arena is shocked by this and begins cheering for Gil Su, now realizing that the tide has turned. Yongo realizes that the fight is going to be much harder than he thought, and Gil Su warns him that he's just getting started, so he better be prepared. They start cheering for him, calling him Vomit Boy, saying that they believe in him. Yongo gets up, saying it was just luck that he only swung uncontrollably and got lucky. He charges at him, but Gil Su lands a jab to his face, immediately following up with a right punch to the head. As Yongo recovers from the hit, Gil Su advances and lands another wombo combo. Hang smiles, saying that Gil Su is better than he seems, turning the fight around like that. Chung says that in a fight of this level, endurance and mental strength are the most important. Unexpected attacks can break the opponent's concentration, so now the dynamic of the fight is in Gil Su's favor. Yongo wipes the blood away and stares, while Deal notices that he's getting more nervous, especially after noticing Hanhee watching the fight, visibly dissatisfied. Yongo remembers Hanhee telling him that he needed to win without fail. Yongo says this is embarrassing and starts lifting his leg in a Muay Thai stance, saying he's tired of this pathetic fight. Gil Su realizes he can't hesitate anymore and needs to finish the fight, but at the wrong moment, Yongo hits him with a kick to the face, sending him flying. He grits his teeth to keep from passing out and wonders what the hell the kick was. Yongo throws a second kick, hitting him in the the stomach, and every impact sounds like he's being hit by metal. He keeps attacking, kicking him into the ropes and telling him that a loser should know his place and stay down, calling him a useless piece of trash. Gil Su says that each blow feels like he's being hit by a cannon, and there's no opening to counterattack. He wonders what to do and remembers the conversation with Deal when he said it didn't matter how dangerous Yongo was because he was prepared. Deal told him to just be careful because Yongo seemed to be hiding something, that his kicks were far from normal, and if you try to kick, he should be prepared. Gil Su now understands why Deal was so alert. It felt like he was being hit by an iron bar instead of a leg. Yongo lifts his leg again, saying he loves seeing that scared look as it suits Gil Su perfectly, and now he needs to beg for his life like the dog he is. Gil Su tries to avoid the kick, but he's too slow and ends up getting hit directly in the face and thrown back and forth like in a Street Fighter combo. Yongo is enjoying every second of it, while Gil Su says that seeing Yongo relish his pain reminds him of the bastards who tormented him whenever they could. There's no difference between them and Yongo. They're all bastards. He then sticks out his rear end and says he can't afford to fall like this. Yongo delivers a direct kick to his cheek, completely surprising him. Deal asks what the hell he's doing, and Gil Su says Yongo can hit him as much as he wants because he knows where this is going. Yongo asks if he's joking, calling him ridiculous, asking if he thinks this will stop him. He goes for another kick, but ends up hitting Gil Su's rear end again. This continues repeatedly because with every kick, he's only hitting Gil Su's butt. All the spectators start laughing, saying he always has an interesting way of fighting, wondering what the name of this move is. Deal laughs and praises Gil Su's cleverness, suggesting that the butt being patted might be his best defense now, especially with his current position. Now Yongo begins to tire and says that if Gil Su is going to try this, then he should try defending with his head. He goes for a kick and Gil Su ducks, saying the kick was slow enough for him to see it clearly, which is good. Deal says the pace has slowed a lot and something felt off when he fought against him as well. Yongo's kicks were strong, but he seemed reluctant to use them, and Deal assumes that the more powerful the kick, the greater the risk. With every second the fight continues, Yongo gets more exhausted, to the point where Gil Su no longer needs to use his butt no jutsu defense and is just dodging the kicks. He narrowly dodges a kick and manages to see something, but his carelessness causes him to be hit directly in the head by a spinning punch. Yongo takes advantage of Gil Su's moment of carelessness. Yongo says that he certainly didn't predict this and laughs at him, saying he certainly was persistent, but it's over now as he goes for a soccer-style kick straight to Gil Su's head. The impact is audible, and Yongo says that no matter how resilient Gil Su is, he can't withstand this, and he must understand now what happens when he tries to act tough. But Gil Su calmly calls Yongo, surprising him, saying that his kick has become so slow and weak, as we see that he's noticed this. Yongo starts to fall as Gil Su pushes him straight to the ground. Yongo begins to sweat nervously, feeling that something is wrong, while Gil Su mentions the strangeness of being hit by metal and notes that his kicks have slowed down, with something shiny appearing during one of them. He grabs Yongo's pants and Yongo starts screaming internally, unable to react. Gil Su pulls and rips his pants, saying that he's got him now, revealing a metal shin guard. Gil Su says that now he understands why Yongo got so tired so quickly. He was using something heavy on his legs. The spectators begin mocking Yongo, calling him a cheater, saying he was only pretending to be strong while wearing metal shin guards. Han comments that Yongo's kicks were really strange and asks Chung what they should do about it. Chung laughs and says they should just wait, as this will be over soon, because Gil Su is going to finish the job. Gil Su starts hitting Yongo hard in the face while he's on top of him. Yongo is speechless, asking how Gil Su isn't exhausted yet. Gil Su says he recognizes that expression. It's a look of dread that means Yongo isn't even considering challenging him. It's the same expression Gil Su used to have when he was intimidated, but that old version of Gil Su is gone now, and he's finally standing up for himself. He screams as tears fill his eyes, and with a very strong punch he hits Yongo directly in the face, causing his head to slam into the arena floor. We see Yongo's eyes starting to fade, already on the brink of losing consciousness, and the referee immediately stops the fight, declaring Gil Su the winner. As he raises his hand, Gil Su feels happy, knowing he's finally knocked out one of the bullies with his own fists. While Yongo lies there, he says it can't be, wondering how he lost. He sees Shoku and says it can't be, it's not over yet, and that he'll take his revenge, but Shoku calls him useless and starts walking away. The crowd begins throwing stones at Yongo, calling him a cheater and saying he should die, treating him like trash and challenging him to a fight the next day. Gil Su approaches him, which surprises him, then extends his hand, leaving Yongo confused. Gil Su says he should get up if he's regained his senses. He really wanted to beat him because he cheated, but he can't do anything because there are rules, and next time they should just focus on fighting fairly. Yongo is speechless. Hang laughs, saying that Gil Su is more interesting than he thought, and he can't believe he's trying to shake Yongo's hand. Chung says that now Gil Su finally looks like a student from Six Gates High School, and he's more capable than he imagined. Then we hear Shoku asking what the hell is going on, asking why little fish are fighting in the arena. The spectators are shocked to see Gil Su grab Yongo, saying he's a bastard who can't even beat a loser, and that he's not welcome at the school. Gil Su doesn't even know who this guy is, but Chung steps into the ring asking Shoku what he thinks he's doing. Shoku says, "Long time, haven't seen you," calling him a traitor. He starts walking toward Chung, saying that seeing such a stupid fight pissed him off and can't stand seeing his school being destroyed. He'd rather finish off the fight arena and simply crush the school. Chung laughs, saying he thought Shoku had given up since he's been so quiet, but this is interesting and Shoku is more than welcome to fight. He's more than ready to beat him now to show how the arena really works. They begin to position themselves for the fight. The students say they can't believe they're witnessing this before they graduate. Gil Su asks if he was his friend. He's surprised that Gil Su doesn't know him, but remembers that he's also a transfer student. Before the fight arena was created, Chung and Shoku used to compete for the title of the strongest in the school. Gil Su is surprised that Shoku is the equivalent of Chung. Shoku stomps his foot on the ground and starts stretching, asking how long it's been since they fought like this. Chung is disgusted to hear Shoku mention the past, asking if he's already looking forward to being defeated again. Shoku calls him arrogant and charges directly at him, saying that Chung went through all that effort to reach the top just to do something like this. The sound of his shockwave scares many of the students, making them run. They wonder what the hell that strength is, saying the ring will collapse. We see that Chung dodged the attack, asking Shoku where he's aiming. Shoku starts smiling, going for an overhead left strike, which Chung immediately dodges, following up with a kick. But of course the kick is also dodged. This continues a few more times, with Shoku still unable to land a single hit on Chung. Gil Su wonders how Shoku can move so quickly with such a large belly. Gil says that Chung is amazing for dodging all of this. Gil Su asks what will happen if Chung loses. Gil thinks for a second, and then says that the arena won't exist anymore, and the school will go back to what it was before, because Shoku is one of Hanhei's subordinates. Gil Su wonders who Hanhei is. Back to the fight, Shoku starts getting frustrated, saying that Chung is just running around like a rat and that you should forget his past victory. We see Shoku assume a charging stance. He immediately charges, saying that now he's a completely different person. He goes for a palm strike, which Chung narrowly dodges but still hits him in the face, cutting his cheek. Shoku starts laughing, saying that he finally touched him. His wave of attacks continues, pushing Chung back in the ring. He says that Chung is acting cool, but he clearly lost his skills, while we see Chung getting hurt all over his body. Shoku says that if he had known Chung was this weak, he would have defeated him earlier, while one of his punches sends Chung flying. Gil Su says this is crazy, asking how Chung can win this. Gil says that from what he's heard, Shoku has always been stronger than Chung, but Chung had him beat in technique. Looking at them now, Shoku is overwhelming him, so maybe he's gone through some special training. Shoku starts thinking about how his body feels completely different, and that he's been given something that is really pushing his body to the limit. He raises his leg for an axe kick, saying that now Chung doesn't surpass him in anything, telling him to die. Chung stares at him, and then we hear the impact of the kick. The students are shocked to see Chung land a direct hit on Shoku's face, asking what Shoku thinks has changed. This punch is strong enough to send Shoku's large body flying, and it sounds like a gunshot. Shoku folds onto the ropes, and Chung says this is just a waste of time for him, and he's ready to finish it now. With Chung directly in his face, he starts treating him like a punching bag. Each punch hits Shoku directly in the stomach, and he starts spitting blood, wondering what the hell is happening with this power. He suggests that Chung might have been holding back all this time. Chung prepares his monstrous right punch, landing directly in Shoku's stomach. Chung shouts, calling the whole situation a complete waste of time. With his fist pointing at Shoku, he yells for him to finish this quickly. Chung delivers a powerful punch to Shoku, launching him out of the ring and sending him crashing through the audience. The crowd is left in shock at the scene. Among the spectators, Gil Su watches in disbelief and admits Chung's impressive strength. The impact of the blow was so intense that Shoku fell out of the ring. Suddenly, Chung turns his head, looking for someone. He immediately spots Park Yongo trying to flee the scene. As he walks, Chung comments that Yongo should be punished for cheating. Yongo instantly freezes upon hearing that he will suffer for breaking the arena's rules. Later that night, in a warehouse illuminated by the stars, Chung walks toward Yongo, holding a wooden stick. In despair, Yongo questions if he will be hit by that piece of wood. The boy stares at the object in fear, wondering if he will be struck. Yongo watches Chung approaching and knows that if he is hit, it will be fatal. Without wasting time, Yongo apologizes and insists that he didn't do it on purpose. Chung immediately orders him to kneel. Hearing this, Yongo knows this won't end well. As a last resort, Yongo clings to Chung's legs and confesses that he has been bullied since childhood. Everyone around listens as he explains that he had no choice but to do what he did since it was his only way to survive. Crying profusely, Yongo pleads for mercy, promising never to do it again. Chung kneels in front of him, bringing their faces close together. Furious, he curses at Yongo and commands him to kneel immediately. From his shadow, multiple drops can be seen falling. Chung watches Park Yongo cry like a small child. Raising the wooden stick, he orders Yongo to clench his teeth unless he wants to pass pass out. At this moment, the only thing Yongo can do is grit his teeth. Then, Chung moves to strike, but for a second, nothing happens. The attack is stopped before landing, because Yongo wet himself before the blow could hit. The entire audience watches this pathetic scene and mocks him. Chung spares him, warning him never to mess up the arena again. Throwing the stick away, he declares that there will be no mercy next time. From a hidden spot in the distance, Kang watches the entire scene unfold. Then Chung shouts for everyone to pay attention. He calls out to the crowd, telling them that now they know how the arena will work. Everyone listens as he explains that fights must be fair with both fighters under the same conditions, and that results must be accepted justly, where only the strong emerge victorious from fierce battles. And if anyone brings an arena fight to school or breaks the rules, as long as he is in charge, they will never be left alone. They have nothing to worry about, and they should also enjoy it, because the Six Gates Arena is a place where even a coward afraid to fight can become a worthy winner by defeating their opponent with their fists. The audience erupts into madness, chanting Jang Chung's name. Excited, he declares that this is all from the student president of the Six Gates. A punching bag is struck. Chung is training his punches on it. Then someone appears behind him as he trains. Gil Su comments that Chung is still training intensely even after fighting the way he did yesterday. Chung asks Gil Su why he came. He remarks that if Gil Su was there to train, there was nothing left for him to teach. Gil Su replies that this wasn't the reason. He was there to thank him. Chung responds that there's no need since he was only doing what had to be done. Gil Su thinks that Chung doesn't have to be so cold, but shortly after, he says there is something that makes him curious. He asks Chung why he went so far to help him. The protagonist remarks that he heard Gil Su was his first student in training, even recalling how Chung spoke a few words when he wanted to leave. Upon hearing this, Chung says that there is something he wants to show someone. As he walks, Chung mentions that Gil Su has improved more than expected, so he has a lot to share. Chung approaches the protagonist and tells him that he has worked hard up until now. Gil Su is surprised to hear this. Then the protagonist thanks him. Looking down, he thinks that he doesn't quite understand what his sunbae meant. After all, his aura felt different from usual, and unfortunately, he couldn't ask about it. Meanwhile, a fight is taking place in the arena. After Chung's speech, the arena became more intense than anyone could have imagined. Everyone was thrilled by the bloody fights, and displays of violence occurred daily in the ring. The referee calls for the next fighter. On one side stands the protagonist, who has changed after countless bloody battles. He rushes toward his opponent, landing a strong punch right in his opponent's face. With his quick agility, he can see the flow of the fight and dodges the opponent's attack. In sequence, the protagonist prepares to strike again. With great style, he lands a powerful punch to his opponent's stomach, finishing the fight. Everyone who witnessed the battle cheers loudly after the protagonist's victory. Now he is completely captivated by the arena. Somewhere far away, Kang is seen sitting, waiting for someone. He looks to the side and notices someone approaching. His person comments that it has been a long time. Kang then confirms that it has indeed been a while since they last met. Coldly, he calls out the name Hyung. Hyung remarks that he expected to hear interesting news after their reunion. Defeated, Kang states that everything was ruined by a loser, and that Shoku also failed to defeat Jang Chung. Despite a sign instructing silence, they make quite a lot of noise. Hyung comments that Chung has grown a lot, even though the real owner is not there. Smirking, Hyung remarks that Jang Chung shouldn't act like he is in charge. Kang comments to Ryung that he has a foolproof plan, and if it doesn't work within the school, he can always resort to another strategy. Upon hearing this, Ryung responds that only those who have personally felt the weight of wearing a collar can place it on someone else. With a serious expression, Ryung warns Kang not to play around with this and emphasizes that he must know his own place. Lifting Kang from the chair, Ryung mentions that his father will provide support and that he will try to get out of there in a few months. Kang expresses relief upon hearing these words. With a cold gaze, Ryung orders him not to tarnish the family's reputation, as he will find a way to resolve everything as soon as he is free. Lowering his head, Kang confirms that he understands. With arms crossed, Ryung and Min exchange glances, satisfied that they have finally succeeded. On his phone, he receives a message inviting him to go out with friends. Now for the first time, he has been invited to a gathering. Excited, he asks his classmates for advice. However, both admit that they have never had this experience and therefore do not know how to help him. Pointing at the phone, Jungmin comments that he has a good feeling, especially since it was Jinny who invited him first. Deal, scratching his ears, recalls how many times Jungmin has gotten his hopes up for nothing. Jinsu, noticing Jungmin's desperation, suggests that perhaps this time there really is a genuine sign. Deal, however, argues that Jungmin has a talent for misinterpreting everything. Upon hearing this, Jungmin gets irritated with Deal, and to calm him down, he promises to buy him a burger for dinner. Taking advantage of the situation, Deal also asks for dessert, and Jungmin agrees, sealing the deal. Later, at a cafe, Jungmin is visibly nervous. Deal asks how many cups he has already had, intrigued by his behavior. Observing him, Gil Su thinks he has never seen him so restless and wonders who this girl might be. Suddenly, Gil Su notices someone approaching. Looking more closely, he sees a very beautiful young woman. Surprised, he comments that it can't be her. Noticing Jungmin calling the girl, Prota concludes that he has high standards. However, Jin Hai is actually another girl with red hair. She enters the cafe, calling for Jungmin. Jin-hai apologizes for being late. Jung-min says it's no problem and quickly introduces his two friends to her. While sipping his juice, Prota reflects that this is the girl Jung-min likes and begins to think that maybe he shouldn't be there. But his train of thought is interrupted when another girl appears before him. She introduces herself as Jung-mei and says it's a pleasure to meet him. Surprised, Prota responds that it's a pleasure as well, changing his mind about not wanting to be there. Curious, Jin-hai asks how Jung-min is at school, since she only sees him at the gym. Drinking his coffee, Jung-min replies that he acts the same way in both places. However, Jin-hai promptly says that he doesn't pay attention in class and spends his time watching videos of the idols he admires. While the two argue, Jin-hai adds that at least he studies hard at the gym. Gil Su, frustrated at not being able to join the conversation, just observes. But then Jung-mei, who is in front of him, notices something. She calls him by name. Smiling, she asks if he doesn't like to talk. Surprised, he responds that it's not like that, and at that moment, he imagines that Anna must think she was the first to start a conversation with him. Jung-mei comments that she's also not a big fan of noise and that the others beside them were too excited. They start talking about how they are often excluded among their classmates. Curious, Jung-mei asks Gil Su what his MBTI is, thinking they might share some personality traits. Gil Su hesitates, not knowing exactly how to answer the question. Suddenly, Jin-hai suggests that everyone go to a karaoke place that can accommodate a lot of people. Gil Su feels slightly discouraged, realizing that his conversation with Jung-mei was interrupted. The scene then shifts to the Koei karaoke. At the entrance, Jung-mei asks Deal if he knows how to sing. While watching Deal and Jung-mei talking naturally, Jung-mei feels a slight pang of jealousy. Before entering, Jung-min grabs Deal's shoulder. Smiling, he asks Jin-hai to go in first, saying they needed to go to the restroom beforehand. Deal, confused, responds that he just went to the restroom and doesn't want to go again. Annoyed, Jung-min questions what is wrong with him that day. Suddenly, the two start arguing over the situation. Gil Su decides to go ahead and enter first, since he was in the middle of a long conversation and didn't want to worry the others. Descending the stairs, Prota reflects that whenever those two are together, they end up fighting. However, Jung-min is sincere, unlike him, who considers himself a coward. In his mind, he can only think of one thing, Jung-mei. Excited, he feels that he wants to get closer to her. As he walks, he reflects on Miss Jung's last name and concludes that her name is very beautiful. Suddenly, something catches his attention. A man is bothering the three girls, insisting that they join him and his friends in the room next door. From a distance, Gil Su shouts, asking what is happening. The man looks at him and mocks, commenting that the girl is accompanied by a loser. Holding Jung-mei's hand, the stranger says he would be a much better companion for her. Jung-mei tries to break free forcefully, but the man grips even tighter. He leans in and asks what she intends to do if he doesn't let go. Gil Su starts running towards him. Before Prota can intervene, Jung-mei lands a precise strike on the man. As he is thrown into the air, she declares that if words don't work, then she has to act. With a determined gleam in her eyes, she states that she will teach him a lesson. The impact is strong and the man crashes violently to the ground. Gil Su is stunned by the scene. Jin-hai puts her hand on her head and sighs, saying that all this happened because the guy grabbed her hand. Turning to Gil Su, Jin-hai comments that he didn't need to do anything. She adds that despite appearances, Jung-mei can be incredibly scary. While still cursing, the man tries to strike her again. However, he continues to be overpowered. Jin-hai then explains that Jung-mei's older brother has trained her since childhood. She is so skilled that most men can't even compete with her. Pointing at Gil Su, Jin-hai mentions that Jung-mei's brother studies at the same school as him. Gil Su is surprised to hear this, wondering if her brother could be Chung. Jung-mei finishes the fight by stepping on the man's head. She comments that he should have let go of her hand when he had the chance, but unfortunately, he chose to test her patience. Jung-mei looks back when she sees two guys talking about their friend lying on the ground. The two of them become furious that she get their friend. As one of them runs toward the girl, he asks if she knows who they are. Before he can finish, he gets punched in the face. The punch is so strong that he is thrown backward. Jung-mei, watching this, is surprised by what she just saw. Holding the guy, the protagonist asks what he thinks about ganging up on girls. Jin-hai comments that Gil Su is no joke and that the school he studies at is really not normal at all. As he walks toward Jang-mei, the protagonist asks if she's okay, and she responds that she is. While the guy tries to get up, Jang-mei thanks him for his help. Young-min arrives and asks why they are still not in class and if perhaps there wasn't a room available. Jin-hai yells at him, asking why he arrived so late and if he has any idea what just happened. Pointing behind her, she says that some thugs were there, but when everyone looks, they realize that they have already escaped through the door. As the three of them walk outside, they comment that those guys study at Six Gate School, and because of that, always end up getting into fights. Grinding his teeth, one of them mutters that he will make them all pay for what they did to him. Meanwhile, Jung-mei is walking with the protagonist and asks how long he has been training since he fights so well. Embarrassed, he thinks that he can't even call it training, but but then he asks how she knows how to fight so well too. Smiling, she responds that it's thanks to her brother's training. Seeing her smile like that, the protagonist comments that she looks nothing like her zombie. Gil Su then tells Jin Yi that his trainer was actually her brother. Surprised, she points a finger at him and comments that he is the transfer student from the first year. Shocked, the protagonist asks if her brother has ever talked about him. Then he remembers Jungmei's words when she mentioned wanting to introduce him to someone and realizes that she might have been referring to her own sister. Gil Su feels down when he realizes that Jin Yi knows about his loser past, which embarrasses him. However, she points her phone at him and says she found him interesting, so she would like to stay in touch. As he types his number into her phone, he comments that he is happy he decided to go out today. In another place, inside a large building, some people are beating a man who is lying on the ground with a plastic bag over his head, begging for mercy. The attacker, unfazed, says that if he wants to live, he must return the money. The victim responds that he has no money, but will do anything to pay the debt. The attacker then rips the bag off the man's head and says he will do exactly as he is told. With a cold look, he orders the man to become a player, as he had demanded before. Still trying to catch his breath, the man replies that yes, you will become a player. The attacker then warns that if he took the money, he will have to pay at least with his own life. At that moment, the three thugs who were beaten by the girl and the protagonist appear. One of them comments that a girl dared to touch their group and that they need to teach her a lesson. Before he can say anything else, the attacker simply covers his mouth and then punches him in the face. Looking at the boy lying on the ground, he mocks him, saying that he was defeated by a girl. Without mercy, he starts kicking him repeatedly, while the other writhes in pain and complains about the beating he is taking. The attacker was beating up the Baxon Group. Another guy arrives trying to save his friend, saying that they didn't just get beaten up by a woman, but also by other people from Six Gate School. The attacker asks about that school. They try to explain that if it weren't for that, they would have won the battle. Smiling, the attacker says that this fight is very interesting. The scene shifts to Six Gate School. In the hallway, Jungmin is sad because Jin Hai hasn't contacted him since the weekend. Soon after, Gil starts mocking him, saying that he failed again. Jungmin yells at Gil, accusing him of being the cause of everything. While they argue, the protagonist is distracted, talking to someone on his phone. On his phone, he asks Jungmai if she has already eaten. She replies that lunch was bad, so she's going to buy bread with her friends. Then she sends a very cute emoji. Seeing the emoji, the protagonist thinks it is very adorable and cute. As they walk down the hallway, Jun Su notices that Park Yong-gu is inside a room. He is kneeling, begging for mercy. Kang asks if Yong-gu doesn't find his existence a nuisance. Then he spits on his head. Mocking him, he says there's no place for a loser who wets his pants. Gil Su watches everything while Kang comments that he would be ashamed to go to school. Gil warns the protagonist, saying that nothing good comes from getting involved with those guys. As they walk down the hallway, the protagonist asks why thugs like Park Yong-gu want to follow Kang. After all, it doesn't make sense to stick together in school. Gil adds that it might not make sense inside the school, but outside, the story is different. He explains that there is a famous company called Gangun. Although it is a company in name only, in reality it operates as a secret organization. They have connections with the police and politicians, and the second son of the family is Kang in Hai. Gil says that Kang was born into a family of gangsters, which is why people like Park Yong-gu want to be under his command. Young Su is surprised to realize that everything comes down to this and comments that he didn't know this neighborhood was so dangerous. Later, on a deserted street, Jungmai walks, thinking that her work ended late and wondering if her brother is already asleep. She looks at her phone screen and smiles. However, someone comes running up from behind. The person calls her attention and screams for help. Jungmai asks what is happening. The girl says she was attacked by some strange guys after refusing something. Jungmai tries to calm her down, saying that she will report everything to the police. Desperate, the girl insists that if she keeps running, she will be caught, so she asks to hide in that alley. Unfortunately, one of the pursuers arrives and says that he thought she was running away, but in the end he found someone even prettier. The fat guy comments that today is his lucky day. Jungmai yells at them, saying that the girl doesn't want anything and orders them to leave. The fat guy asks if she really hates this. Jungmai, not realizing the trap, asks what he means by that. Then she is struck by an electric shock to her back. Still standing, the girl smiles and says that she hated it, and that she doesn't like dumb men either. Lying on the ground, Jungmai asks who she is and if she was with those guys. The previous attacker approaches and says it is a pleasure to meet her. Trying to get up, Jangmei hears the guy say that she seems to fight well. This person is named Jahu Han, and he is 18 years old. With a mocking smile, he asks if she would like to have some fun with him. The guy who got beaten up by her earlier comments that he would never let her escape after messing with the Baxon Group. She thinks that he was the one she fought with at the karaoke. As he walks toward her holding a stick, the guy asks how it felt to be shocked by a taser. Jaevu prepares to hit her with the stick while saying he'll make things more interesting. Jungmei tries her best to move. Before the guy can hit her, she manages to dodge at the last second. Jaevu is intrigued intrigued by how she can still move. The woman holding the taser is pleased to see that she can still move after being electrocuted. Jiang Mei begs her to stop while hearing the woman say that things are about to get even more interesting. In the next scene, Jiang Mei is electrocuted. The woman approaches, saying that if she had stayed still, she would have only taken one hit and wouldn't be unconscious now. Then she asks what Jiang would do, as she would love to keep the girl around to teach her a good lesson. Jaegu states that the girl is too important, so no one is allowed to touch her. He then orders his underling to tie her up and take her to the hideout. However, someone approaches quickly. One of the henchmen looks to the side and notices something. Gil Su is already right next to them. He points and warns that Gil Su is getting closer. But before anything else happens, the henchman is struck by the protagonist. Everyone watches the scene and Jaegu quickly asks what's going on. Standing still, the protagonist comments that if he had been faster, none of this would have happened. Then he shows his phone with the screen still lit next to Jiang Mei, who is lying on the ground. Furious, Gil Su looks back. 30 minutes before this happened, the protagonist was walking while thinking about his training. Looking at his phone, he wondered what Jiang Mei was doing at that moment. In his message, he asks what she's doing and mentions that he's heading home after training. Seeing that she responded so quickly, he's shocked. Jiang Mei says that she's also on her way home after training a lot. Further down in the conversation, she mentions that she's passing by the same karaoke place from before and asks if she should go in since there's no one there and she could sing a song. Smiling like a fool, the protagonist realizes that she's bored and comments that he would love to sing a lot with her. However, something catches his attention. He notices that her last message has a different tone. Before being attacked by Tails, the woman mentioned that she liked playing with beautiful people. At the moment when Jiang Mei asked who she was and if she was with those guys, she was on her phone sending a message to Gil Su. Furious, Gil Su begins to suspect something while analyzing the messages right after arriving at the scene. One of the men points at him, saying that he's one of the students from Six Gates School. Jaegu comments that he will be the first guest. However, the members of Six Gates were growing impatient. Enraged, Gil Su declares that they messed with the wrong person and that he will simply kill them all. The fat guy charges at the protagonist, saying that he can't do anything alone. In response, the protagonist dodges the punch and immediately lands a precise blow to the opponent's mouth. Two other men run toward the protagonist, saying that he will die there. They both attack at the same time, but the protagonist dodges and lands a direct punch to one of their stomachs. Meanwhile, the other, thinking the protagonist's guard is down, attempts to kick him. However, the protagonist blocks the attack. Then he counterattacks with a direct punch to the opponent's mouth. With eyes full of rage, the protagonist thinks that they are definitely weaker compared to the kids from Six Gates. It didn't matter how many people were against him, he would defeat them all. Something approaches at high speed. Gil Su manages to dodge at the last second. Jevu comments that he's always been curious about Six Gates and that he wants to test the protagonist's skills. He then charges at Gil Su. He starts attacking repeatedly, but the protagonist dodges every strike. Jaegu tries to hit him from below, but the protagonist jumps. While in the air, he prepares to counterattack with a kick. Meanwhile, the protagonist questions who Jaegu thinks he is to judge him when he doesn't even have the skills for it. Jaegu manages to defend himself using a wooden stick. Smiling, he comments that the protagonist isn't bad at all. The protagonist advances and says that this is only the beginning. Gil Su tries to intimidate him, saying that he doesn't know how to fight without a weapon. With a sneaky move, Javu sweeps the protagonist off his feet. As he falls, the protagonist thinks that he is actually excited. He lands face first into something relatively suspicious. Smiling, Javu comments that dealing with Gil Su is more complicated than he expected, so he decides to send someone else to fight him instead. Fortunately for the protagonist, he landed on something relatively soft. He quickly moves away, saying he didn't do it on purpose and apologizing. With an unfriendly expression, the woman comments that he looks cute and is embarrassed. Gil Su notices that she is holding a taser. Immediately, he deduces that she must have used it on Jiang Mei. Excited, the woman charges at Gil Su with a taser. With the electric device approaching dangerously, he wonders how he could dodge it. He is saved by Jiang Mei, who kicks the taser into the air. The protagonist realizes something has happened. The woman seems startled by what she just saw. Right in front of her, Jiang Mei is standing, furious. Surprised, the woman asks what's going on, as she was sure that Jiang Mei had been knocked out before. Holding a wooden stick in her hand, Jiang Mei comments that she received something interesting earlier. She remembers the moment when the enemy tried to hit her with a wooden stick. At the last moment, she managed to dodge. A piece of the wood fell near her. While the woman celebrated that she could still move even after being electrocuted, Jiang Mei was holding that piece of wood. At the instant she was struck by the shock, she managed to defend herself using the stick. Furious, the woman starts cursing at Jiang Mei. Irritated, Jiadu yells at her, saying she can't even finish things properly. Gil Su approaches and asks Jiang Mei if she's okay. She replies that she is, especially because he arrived in time, giving her the chance to recover. Both take a fighting stance. Then they declare that now is the time to teach their enemies a good lesson. Jeju states that he didn't want to make a scene. Even without the stun gun, nothing would change. However, before he finishes his sentence, something quickly approaches his face. Gil Su lands a solid punch straight to his face. Right after, he throws another blow, saying that this is what happens to those who cross the line. The woman looks at Jang Mei and comments that she has courage and tenacity, but she should have stayed down. In a fighting stance, the woman declares that she too is a great fighter. Jang Mei responds that she really did want to stay down. However, she doesn't like people who do bad things, and because of that, she needed to get up and do something about it. Hearing this, the woman simply rushes toward Jang Mei. In the other fight, Jiayu is thrown into the trash. With Gil Su standing in front of him, he comments that he can't even fight. The protagonist hears Jiayu saying that he expected much more from him. As he gets up, Jiayu comments that the warm-up is over and that now the game is really about to start. He puts something in his mouth and starts biting down. Then he runs toward the protagonist. Jiayu tries to land a punch, but the protagonist manages to defend himself. However, furious, Jiayu successfully lands a solid blow to the protagonist's stomach. Smiling, he asks what the protagonist can do now. Then he delivers a violent kick to the protagonist's shin. The protagonist wonders how Jiayu suddenly regained his strength so quickly. Jiayu throws multiple punches at the protagonist and questions where his confidence has gone. As he's hit, the protagonist realizes that Jiayu is strong and powerful. He wonders how he's even managing to fight against a guy like this. Even holding back, he can't believe what's happening. Jiayu doesn't understand it either. The protagonist was able to block one of his punches with his face. Enjoying the situation, the protagonist grabs Jiyu's neck. Then he lands a powerful punch to his opponent's stomach. Jiayu counters with a punch to the protagonist's face. Gil Su, holding his opponent's neck with both hands, steps back to gain momentum. Then he smashes his own head against Jiayu's. They both seem like machines. They don't stop. They begin exchanging blows evenly. As he's hit, Jiayu realizes that the protagonist is reckless, attacking randomly. However, at the right moment, the protagonist lands a precise jab to Jiyu's chin. Gil Su asks if he'd like to know what a fight from his school is like. Shouting, he says that this is what a freshman can do. Then he delivers a devastating punch, sending the guy flying. Wiping his face, the protagonist states that no one has been bullied like he has. That's why he can take a beating better than anyone. The protagonist remembers something before Jiayu attacked him. He recalls that Jiayu took something from his pocket and put it in his mouth before fighting. Before he can think more about it, he remembers Jang Mei and quickly looks to the side. She has just finished for battle against the woman. Jang Mei comments that she knew he was capable of defeating Jiayu. The protagonist, in turn, thinks that now she looks a lot like Chung. Jang Mei grabs the woman by her clothes and asks why she did all of this. Desperate, the woman responds that she doesn't know anything and has no connection to the Baxon Group. She claims she only did it because she was paid by those guys. The protagonist remembers the moment when Jiayu mentioned the Baxon Group. Curious, Baxu asks about the group and why they were paying people to act this way. The woman asks if they've never heard of the Baxon Group. She explains that maybe they haven't heard of it because they study at Six Gates. She continues saying that Baxon is an alliance of high school students that suddenly emerged in the city of Jiangnan half a year ago. But they aren't just a group of delinquents. They are a much larger organization. All the strong fighters from other schools were joining the Baxon Group. She mentions that there are other gangs in the city, but Baxon is growing much faster than all the others. The protagonist wonders about the alliance of high schools. She continues saying that she doesn't know how they ended up on the group's radar, but she knows Gil Su is plotting something. She remembers when Jiayu gave her a large sum of money to make sure she didn't fail. This was his chance to be recognized within the group. If he could gather enough players, he had a chance to become one of the 5 dragons. Gil Su says that they weren't after him, but his school, so he wants to understand why. The woman explains that the Baxon Group controls most schools in Jiangmyang, but still had no influence in the northern part of the city, where the protagonist's school is located. Gil Su remembers when the man commented that he was curious to see the abilities of the people from Six Gates. The woman stands up and says that this is all the information she knows and that she has nothing to do with it. However, she is stopped by Jang Mei, who grabs her hoodie. Looking seriously at the woman, Jang Mei asks where she thinks she's going. Smiling, she replies that she wasn't done with her yet. Then something happens. As they walk, the protagonist apologizes for involving her in this matter related to his school. She replies that it's not a problem and that there's no reason for him to apologize. Besides, she says that anything related to his school was also part of her family. Therefore, there was no reason to turn her back on it. Pointing his finger, he says that she really is Chung's sister, so he knew she'd get involved either way. Looking down, the protagonist reflects for a moment and says that, in a way, this is a good thing. She asks what he means by that. Gil Su comments that no matter how fierce the Baxon Group is, they couldn't touch them as long as they had Chung by their side. He reflects on the guys he fought today, realizing they weren't that strong. Smiling, she asks if he's sure about that, knowing that her brother is a bit peculiar in that sense. He blushes when he hears Jang Mai say that he was amazing back there. Happy, she thanks him, saying that this is the second time he's helped her. He smiles, satisfied that he was able to protect her. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Jaevu tells someone that this wasn't what he wanted to do. The guy asks if Jaevu knows what his problem is, and the problem is that he bit off more than he could chew. Jaevu apologizes and explains that this was the only territory he didn't have control over, so he got greedy. Hearing this, the guy gets furious and kicks him in the face. He says that he had plans to take over the north of Jeonnyang and didn't need Jaevu causing problems. The man states that Jaevu was being demoted and that from that day on, he will become a player. As he is stomped on, Jaevu tries to plead not to be demoted. Tyron Guan says that being a player will be fun and that he'll see them in the Coliseum. In a different location, a few people are gathered and a young man from behind says that they are weak and have just run away from home. This man asks if they would like to join the Thunderstorm gang. One of them responds that it has already been a month since they left home and that they heard that if they joined the gang, they could get food and a place to stay. As soon as he finishes speaking, the guy gets punched in the face and is thrown against the nearby wall. Everyone looks at the guy lying on the ground, while the other one comments about food and a place to stay, asking if this place was supposed to be a charity. The man was known as Jinsa, the leader of the runaway gang Thunderstorm. After seeing all of this, the others start running away to escape. He gets furious that they all ran off, leaving the guy behind. To him, this showed that they had neither courage nor loyalty. As he sits down, he wonders what's going on with today's candidates and why it's so difficult to find good talent. The man lighting his cigarette says that maybe it's because of the Baxon Group, where all the good ones must already be joining. While smoking, he says that the gang needed to grow, not just being a group of runaways, but building strength. As he thinks about this, someone arrives and asks if he needs help. From the other person's expression, he already knows who it is, Park Yongo. He asks how the Thunderstorm gang became so desperate for help. Two of the men comment that Yongo has no right to be there and that he must be joking. He replies that he came for a visit as he is much more qualified than those who just ran away. Jinsap approaches Yongo and asks why he should take back a traitor. Standing in front of him, he says he can't apply because, in reality, he's just kind of an asshole. Yongo replies that he's not that shameless and that he's not asking to be accepted back. However, he asks Jinsap to give him a task and he will do whatever is necessary. Upon hearing this, Jinsap starts to smile. The next day at school, Gil Su feels sicker than usual and thinks about going to the pharmacy to buy some ointments. While leaving an alley, Prota sees someone talking to another person in the hallway. They are trying to convince Park Yongo to return to the gang. Yongo tells them to stop stalling and get straight to the point. Rooster Crest comments that he heard Yongo knew many girls when he was part of the Thunderstorm gang and that he could have more fun with him since he doesn't have a home to return to. Yongo simply ignores them and heads toward the exit. Furious, Rooster Crest throws a soda can at Yongo's head, calling him a loser who pisses his pants and saying he should be grateful for the chance given to him. With quick reflexes, Park Yongo kicks the can back toward the two. He tells them not to worry that he only tolerated them to get into the group, but now he's giving up. They won't be able to talk to him like that anymore. The two men ask if Kang knows about this. Flipping them off, he asks what the point was of studying at a school like this. Gil Su just watches all of this from afar. At the high school gate, Yongo walks while holding a box. He reflects on how he no longer cares about the Im-Yang group or the Kang group, and that now he will start over again with the Thunderstorm gang. He stops after hearing someone calling his name. Looking back, he sees it's the protagonist asking if he is really going to quit school. Gil Su asks if the reason was what happened in the arena. He says that if that's the reason, Yongo can always prove his worth again in the arena, and that he is always willing to fight. Park Yongo simply throws the box on the ground and then grabs the However, Yongo manages to block it with his knee. He asks the guy why he looks so surprised. While kicking the two men, he comments that his shin is made of steel. The two lunatics pass by their own boss. Yongo prepares to finish this quickly because he doesn't want to waste energy working. Three more guys charge at Yongo while he also runs toward them. Yongo shouts, saying that he cannot lose and that he will win no matter what. Looking at photos, someone asks if Jinsap is really going to accept Yongo back into Thunderstorm. Jinsap, looking at the photo, replies that he will not accept him back. However, someone asks why he gave those orders to Yongo. Jinsap replies that if Yongo succeeds, he will clear the space for other runaways. Right after that, Yongo gets hit in the face with a wooden stick. Holding a lighter, Jinsap burns a photo, saying that he has nothing to lose. As the photo burns, he says that this is what happens to traitors like Yongo. Grinning maliciously, he says that first he abuses with force and then throws them under the bus. The scene changes to a gas station. The stick falls to the ground and Yongo remains standing in front of several people lying on the floor. The boss of the defeated men says that Yongo has turned into a monster and that he wasn't that strong before. Wiping his face, he says he doesn't want to talk about the past as he is now a completely changed man. While preparing a kick, he says that he had two options, but now he doesn't have any choice left. Lifting his foot, he tells the guy to get lost and never bother him again. And that's exactly what he does. He kicks the guy in the face. Now at high school, two people comment on how how Yongo is still causing problems even after leaving the school, as they are throwing away all of his clothes and belongings. One of them asks if they've heard the rumor that Yongo went back to his runaway gang and has already earned a position there. Apparently, he might start attacking people who didn't like that school. Prota just listens to them talk about having accepted Yongo back into the gang. Gil Su asks if they heard the school rumor. Gil responds that he did and wonders why he hasn't seen him at school anymore. Gil adds that Kang abandoned him, and that could happen. Until then, the only reason Yongo went to school was to keep good relations with everyone in the gang. Gil Su believes that he didn't quit just because of that and asks if he didn't have friends there. Gil asks who would want to be friends with that guy. If it weren't for the gang, he wouldn't be able to talk to anyone. Gil Su becomes somewhat concerned after hearing this. The scene changes to a child singing. She looks back to see if any of the other children moved. The 3 children remain practically still. The boy notices that no one moves, so he starts singing again, and everyone begins to run. Gil Su, noticing that the boy turned around, tries to stay still. However, he's caught in the act. The boy points his finger and asks who he is. Gil Su says he's looking for someone named Haitian. He looks back after hearing that someone might be able to help him, and that person is Haitian herself. They are at the orphanage. He hands her the letter Yongo had dropped, and she asks if he really quit school. Gil Su confirms that he dropped the letter, but didn't know where to return it, so he tried to find the sender. Gil Su thinks that Yongo didn't care to take his other things, even though he had no friends at school. However, he packed the letter, so it must be something important to him. The young girl says she also doesn't know where to send it, and Prota asks if she really doesn't know, since she was close to him. Sadly, she says she doesn't know where he's staying since he left the orphanage, so she sent the letter to the school thinking he would find it there. Surprised, Gil Su asks if Yongo is from that orphanage. Haitian replies yes, saying that he doesn't have a father and that she grew up with him there. In a flashback, she remembers the moment when she fell to the ground. The children around her cried, asking if she was okay, while someone standing told them to stop crying. The fat rooster crest told them to bring money from now on and to complain to their father if they didn't like it. While crying, she says that the children who live in orphanages are often discriminated against and bullied by others. However, every time someone intimidated them, Yongo would appear to help. He was there to protect his family as if he were a hero. However, things were different when he was the one being bullied. The boy in front of him told Yongo to know his place and that he shouldn't bite off more than he could chew. He had no one to rescue him for help. He suffered a lot of bullying in elementary school, and that's when he stopped smiling. Standing in front of Thunderstorm, that's when he joined the runaway gang, and that's how Yongo left the orphanage. He only returned after a long time. Holding some food bags, he says he's back and completely different from how he was. The children even doubted whether he was really Yongo they knew. The young lady comments that he has changed so much that she's even afraid of him now. He approaches the children, saying that it hasn't been long since he left and that he missed them a lot. She tells Gil Su that he visited them every month and brought many gifts. However, lately he stopped showing up, and because of that, she started worrying about him and she had no idea he had dropped out of school. Prota thinks that she makes Yongo seem completely different from the person he knows. Shaking as she holds the letter, she thinks it sometimes scares her. She cries, thinking that one day he could become a completely horrible person. Prota just watches, not saying a word. The scene then changes to Thunderstorm. A wrench is completely stained with blood. Jinsa has beaten a guy, saying that he gave him food to eat, a place to stay, and is it really that hard to repay the favor? The person promises that next month they'll have double the money. Jinsa says that he knows what will happen if he disappoints him again. While smoking his cigarette, he adds that today's kids don't have the courage to do things and that it's totally different from his time. He then asks Yongo if he doesn't agree, saying he needs people like him. Grabbing Yongo's shoulder, he adds that he finished the gang alone and even praised his skills, saying that he improved them. Jinsap sits down, saying that at least this compensates for the way he betrayed them, so now he could see if he deserves to join the Thunderstorm gang again. Yongo yells, saying that he thought Jinsap would take him back after destroying the other gang. Smoking his cigarette and smiling, Jinsap says that the verification process became harder after he betrayed them. Concerned, Yongo asks what he would like him to do this time. Jinsap asks if he's really willing to do anything. Hearing this, Yongo is surprised, and then Jinsap asks if he would be willing to kill someone. Once again, Jinsap asks if Yongo is willing to do anything. Yongo is speechless and doesn't know how to respond. Jinsap asks if he really thinks he can kill someone. Hearing this again, Yongo is lost, wondering what he means by talking about killing someone. Jinsap starts to smile slightly. Then he begins to laugh, thinking that the boy is quite funny. Unfortunately, he really believed that he would have to dirty his hands with blood. Yongo asks if he really thinks this is funny. Extinguishing his cigarette, Jinsap says that indeed, he will have to do something as risky as killing someone. As he lights his lighter, Yongo wonders what he means. Approaching, Jinsap says he has to set fire to a motorcycle. He states that it's hard to make money lately, but he was paid a lot to carry out this job. Yongo asks if that's really what he has to do. Placing his hand on Yongo's shoulder, Jinsap affirms that it won't be hard for him to complete it. If he succeeds, he will get his place back in the Thunderstorm gang. In an empty street, Yongo walks. He He reflects that if he gets caught doing this, he could end up in juvenile detention for arson. Unfortunately, he had already come so far only to quit in the end. Looking up, he sees the sign of the orphanage where he grew up. Rubbing his head, he wonders what he's doing there, now feeling like a complete fool. While thinking about going home to sleep, someone appears behind him. The person calls his name and turns around to see who it is. Hazen asks if it's really Yongo. Moments later, the two are sitting on a swing in a park. Yongo asks Hazen why she's walking alone at night, and she replies that she was out because she couldn't sleep. She asks if he's okay since he hasn't been answering her calls, and he says he's fine, just busy. Hazen calls him a liar, saying she can clearly see that he's going through tough times. Downhearted, she talks about her past, when she was a child, and how they used to play in the park together all the time. Yongo replies that he doesn't remember because he was too busy pushing other kids. The two discuss the past, where she even has a scar because of him. Smiling, he now remembers how excited he was to see her having fun. Hazen reminds him of when he always saved them when they were bullied at the playground. He's surprised by everything she said. Curiously, Hazen asks why he doesn't go back to the orphanage. Sadly, he just listens as she says he could stay with her and the other children at the orphanage. Yongo thanks Hazen. As he stands up, he says it's too late for him, and Hazen asks what he means by that. However, he just says that maybe he won't be back anytime soon, so there's nothing to worry about. As he leaves, Yongo tells her to go inside and sleep since it's late. Crying, Hazen wonders why she has to say things like that. It makes it feel like these are her last words before he disappears forever. The next day, in a parking lot, a motorcycle is covered with gasoline. Yongo is carrying out the mission given by Jinsa. Looking around, he sees that everything is going according to plan. He just needs to stay calm. Yongo is surprised by everything Jinsa said about no cameras and not many cars around at that hour. The gas can is thrown on the ground. All he needs to do is set the motorcycle on fire without hesitation. Staring intently at the lighter, he knows he doesn't need to think twice. After all, this is the only way he has to survive. Going back further in the past, a child walks among some people. Without a family, he realized something very early. Seeing other families having fun, even the smallest things that other children appreciate, are not free for him. While someone is born in a world as a small fish, he's treated merely as a toy for some other people. The boy approaches, curious, wondering what to do, thinking why he could fight him without even having a family to support him. The boy grabs a dangerous tool and says he's forced to use extreme measures. Pointing the tool at Yongo, he says he never wanted to do this. The reason for all of this is because Yongo caused it. Almost poking Yongo's eye out, the boy warns him to be careful what he bites off more than he can chew. Everything is interrupted when some people show up at the scene. The children look back after hearing the men asking what they're doing there. The man in the middle comments that the brats don't know where they are. The troublemaker tries to argue, asking who the man thinks he is, and says he's not scared, just because they're wearing suits. Before he could say anything else, a punch is directed to his face. Hit hard, the boy is thrown to the ground with a tremendous impact. The man calls him insolent and says he'll teach him a lesson for answering a member of the Ungang. The two boys are scared when they realize they're dealing with members of the Ungang. Surprised, Yongo wonders who these guys are. It was at that moment that he learned something in those endless days of despair. The only way to stay alive is to become a powerful predator. Outside, another man gets out of the car. He asks everyone what all the unnecessary commotion is about. One of them apologizes, saying he had to clean up a small mess, and then the boss orders the manager to appear in his office later. His employees bow in respect to their boss's orders. The man is seen as a fierce and hungry dragon. It was on this day that Yongo made his decision, that he would become a predator so that he would never be hunted again. The mark on his chest was proof of his determination, and that's why he no longer has a choice. He needed to do this to become like that man. However, someone appears ordering him to stop. Then Yongo is doused with a lot of water. The person holding the bucket warns him that he will wet the blanket if he plays with fire at night. Yongo asks this person how they discovered his location. Gil Su, holding the bucket, says that he's going to piss his pants again, and everyone is going to start calling him a real bedwetter. 3 hours ago, someone was calling for Gil Su. Anxious, Hasten searched for Gil Su to talk. Sitting in the park, he asked if she knew anything about Yongo planning something. Nervously, she replied that she always noticed when he became restless and anxious before acting. It was exactly like this when he decided to join the fugitives gang. She remembered the moment when he told her not to worry, but his tone sounded like someone who would never return. Amidst tears, she confessed that she was terrified. Although she said Gil Su had no reason to help, she still asked for his help. Meanwhile, some meat was being prepared. Two young men were having fun on the rooftop, grilling the pieces and enjoying the absence of their seniors. However, the door suddenly opened, shocking them with the unexpected presence of someone. It was Gil Su, asking if that was the thunderstorm base. The reaction of the boys gave away the answer, and the protagonist realized he was in the right place. He recalled when Dohyo mentioned they probably lived in an abandoned building. A little nervous, Gil Su stated that he wasn't there to join the gang, but was looking for someone. The two were surprised to hear that he was actually looking for Yongo Park. One of them asked what his interest in Yongo was, and Gil Su explained that he needed to talk to him but couldn't find him. To his surprise, he was told that Yongo was probably being arrested at that very moment. While chewing a piece of meat, one of the boys suggested that Gil Su leave quickly before one of Yongo's friends came to beat him up. However, before he could finish chewing, the protagonist covered his mouth. With no other choice, he advanced toward him, saying he didn't have time for fights but would face whatever was necessary. He then demanded to know where Yongo was. In the present, present, Yongo stared at Gil Su in surprise, asking how he had arrived there. Trying to advise him, Gil Su asked him not to do anything he would regret, reminding him that it was a crime. However, Yongo charged at him, stating that Gil Su didn't know him and therefore had no right to tell him what to do. Yongo attacked the protagonist, claiming that Gil Su knew nothing about his life. Even though intimidated, Gil Su held his ground and said he didn't care because there was someone more important. He then asked him to return to the orphanage where he came from. Gil Su explained that Hazen had asked for his help because she feared Yongo would do something reckless. Upon hearing this, Yongo was surprised by the audacity of his friend. Gil Su stated that she was a good person and very important, to the point of asking a complete stranger to help him. Then he asked him not to throw his life away since there was still someone who truly cared about him. Holding a lighter, Yongo became thoughtful. He hadn't imagined that Hazen saw him as such an important person. However, before he could react, a new presence appeared, interrupting the moment with clapping and a mocking smile. "What a wonderful show we have here," said the newcomer. Jinsa sarcastically said that Yongo almost made him cry. Yongo was stunned to see who had just arrived, his former boss. Jinsa stared at him and said he had almost ruined everything. Surprised, Yongo asked how long he had been watching. In response, Jinsa raised his phone and laughed, explaining that he truly believed Yongo would let him return to Thunderstorm. Then he showed a video where Yongo was pouring gasoline on a motorcycle. Shocked, Yongo asked why he had recorded that. Smiling, Jinsap stated that Yongo was nothing more than disposable, someone who would be used and then thrown under the bus. Furious upon hearing this, Yongo began shouting at his former boss. While tossing the lighter, Jinsap told him to go to jail and reflect behind bars. The other man just smiled wickedly, wondering what worse things he could do to his former subordinate. However, something caught Jinsap's attention and he immediately looked back. At that moment, someone appeared and kicked the lighter out of his hand. It was Deal, arriving to help the protagonist. Young Min quickly jumped over the fence, commenting that at least he had arrived at the right time. With their arrival, Yongo was surprised. Gil Su stated that they had appeared at the perfect moment. Then the protagonist felt relieved that he had been able to warn them in advance. In a brief flashback, he thought that the man with a lighter would certainly try to set something on fire before they had time to stop him. While running, he reflected on the fact that there were only 2 weak henchmen on the rooftop. So, where were the other members? Worried, he sent a message to Deal and Young Min, asking them to meet in a parking lot. In the present, Gil Su sighed in relief upon seeing them. Curious, he asked if this was some kind of extracurricular activity. Then he teased Yongo, saying he had left him to hang out with those losers. Irritated, Deal responded that he wasn't there for Yongo Park, but to help the other guy. He complained that he had to cancel an important appointment for this. Soon after, he ran toward the gang leader. However, he was intercepted by an unexpected opponent. When he tried to attack, he felt pain in his fist and was intrigued by what was happening. With a confident smile, the man commented that Deal had some interesting friends in charge at him. The blow was precise. The man in the cap was Hang, and he asked Yongo why he hadn't introduced them yet. Yo prepared to help his friend, but before he could react, another person appeared to stop him. With a direct punch, the adversary muttered that he hated people like him. After a sequence of punches, he asked if Deal had started boxing. Analyzing his enemy, Deal tried to find a gap to counterattack. However, before he could act, he was hit squarely in the face, opening a cut on his cheek. The person who attacked him was Michael, 18 years old, also a boxer. Seeing the situation, Gil Su was furious, realizing that the opponents were playing dirty. But before he could do anything, a new fighter appeared in front of him, speaking in another language. Holding 2 sticks in his hands, a newcomer was Kiyoshi. Upon hearing the young man's language, Gil Su was surprised to realize that he spoke Japanese. Suddenly, Kiyoshi charged at the protagonist, delivering a spinning blow. Trying to defend himself, Gil Su realized that his attempt was ineffective. After being hit, he wondered how his enemy had managed to break his guard. How could he face someone like that? The Japanese man raised both sticks high. Then he struck Gil Su squarely on the back. Jinsa pointed behind him and commented to Yongo that his friends were in danger. Then he asked if Yongo wasn't going to help them. Without hesitation, Yongo landed a precise kick, telling Jinsap to mind his own life. However, for a brief moment, Yongo was intrigued when he heard a different sound. As he threw his shirt aside, his opponent commented that Yongo's kicks were more intimidating than before. Wearing a vest, he added that he had taught his former pupil well. However, Yongo wasn't the only one who had improved, and he was surprised to notice his opponent's vest. With his guard up, Jinsap stated that it had been a while since his last fight, and then invited Yongo for a sparring session. The two stared at each other for a moment, but soon Yongo lunged with a kick, making it clear he didn't care about the past. Jinsap defended the strike with his arm and quickly countered, landing a clean blow to Yongo's face. Dazed by the impact, Yongo was surprised by the strength of his opponent. Breaking the gaze, Jinsap declared he wouldn't go easy and would beat him until he understood who he was dealing with. Meanwhile, Jung Min struggled to defend against Hang's attack. attacks. His arms were numb after receiving so many blows from that strange weapon. Hang, curious about how long Young Min could endure, intensified his attacks, striking several times in quick succession. However, Young Min noticed something. Hang was only using his arms, not involving his fists in the strikes. This meant he wasn't able to move his arms properly. Thinking quickly, Young Min jumped backward, thinking that if he could reach the wall, Hang wouldn't be able to hit him. Surprised by Young Min's statement about his arms being useless, Hang hesitated. Jumping up, he realized that his combat ability was even more limited than he had imagined. Meanwhile, Deal faced a brutal series of strikes. Michael, laughing, asked where he had learned boxing, and if they only taught him how to keep his guard up. On the next attack, he tried to break Deal's defense. Fortunately, Deal managed to dodge at the last second. In that instant, he realized something important. Michael was using something more than his fists. If he imagined that his opponent's arm was longer than it appeared, he could better predict the strikes and dodge them more effectively. Michael, advancing, said that this time Deal wouldn't be so lucky. But to his surprise, it was Michael who ended up getting hit. Astonished by the quick adaptation of his opponent, Michael retreated. Deal ran toward him, saying he would teach him a lesson. Meanwhile, Gil Su was thrown against a car. Twisting his baton skillfully, the Japanese man seemed excited about the fight. Struggling to get up, the protagonist reflected that the battle was complicated as the opponent's attacks were unpredictable, and he was still able to defend well. Gil Su then ran toward his opponent, demanding that he speak his language because he couldn't understand anything. The Japanese man, relentless, hit him again, mocking the fact that Gil Su was accepting the fight despite being a foreigner. Advancing, he declared that this was the reason he was there, to eliminate all the enemies of Thunderstorm. And since Gil Su wasn't part of the gang, the Japanese attacked him again, claiming he would kill him. Even the car nearby took damage during the fight. On the ground, Gil Su tried to find a way to defeat the enemy. Looking down, he noticed something curious. His shoes were untied. The Japanese man approached, stating it was time to end the fight. However, he noticed something strange. Gil Su was now holding his shoes, which were completely tied. Amused by the situation, the opponent advanced to attack. But something seemed different. Gil Su used the shoes to defend himself, surprising the Japanese man. Completely defenseless, the opponent couldn't react as Gil Su attacked. With a smile on his face, the protagonist commented that this was the true meaning of improvisation. Blood spread across the floor. Yongo was completely beaten. He asked Jinsa to stop talking about the past, showing discomfort with the subject. However, Jinsa didn't back down and stated that Yongo couldn't deny what he had already lived. He reminded him that it was Yongo who had taught him how to fight and use protectors, highlighting the irony of the situation. Approaching, Jinsa reinforced that all those pieces of equipment belonged to Thunderstorm. He questioned why Yongo insisted on avoiding the past, considering that, in the past, he was known as the dog of Thunderstorm. At that time, Yongo always walked with his head down, constantly intimidated by others. He couldn't even remember the last time he looked at the sky. Turning his gaze away, he noticed a group of people celebrating after a long day's work. Jinsap and his henchmen were among them, laughing and chatting casually. The first impression Yongo had upon seeing them was fear, but the scene intrigued him. He asked why they seemed so happy and carefree. He felt a pang in his stomach as he realized he was hungry. He couldn't remember the last time he had moved. A whole day without food had left him weakened, and now his stomach was growling loudly. That's when a voice called him. He turned around and saw Jinsap, who suggested he return the next day if he had nowhere else to go. Jinsap smiled as he noticed something different in Yongo's gaze, realizing he could use him for his own purposes. In a flashback to the past, on top of a building, Yongo was training with Jinsap. He was attacking a pad that Jinsap held, showing his strength. After watching the kick, Jinsap stated that Yongo had potential, but needed more practice. Shortly after, he ordered his henchmen to bring something and handed Yongo a box. He asked him to remember that moment and, smiling, explained that it wasn't the strongest who won, but those who became strong. His philosophy completely captivated Yongo. From that day on, he began to follow Jinsap's orders without question. But standing in front of the orphanage, Yongo realized that Thunderstorm was on an irreversible path. Jinsap grabbed his head firmly and accused him of betrayal, saying he had returned crawling like a defeated dog. He raised his fist and stated that Yongo deserved punishment, insisting that he was nobody and didn't belong anywhere. However, Yongo defended the strike, surprising Jinsap. The gang leader hesitated for a moment, stunned by the unexpected resistance. Then he noticed that Yongo had equipped himself with the Japanese man's weapon. Looking back, he saw that Gil Su's friends were standing, while his own allies were lying on the ground. They had been defeated by 3 children. Deal, noticing the situation, mocked the enemies, commenting that those who resorted to weapons did so because they weren't strong enough to fight for real. Jinsap couldn't believe what he was seeing. Gil Su, without hesitation, reminded Jinsap that he still had an unfinished fight with Yongo, and for that reason, he ordered him to leave that place. Jinsap ran his hand across his neck, showing irritation, and asked why Gil Su was so determined to protect Yongo. He argued that more than anyone, he should understand the situation and stated that Yongo was just a bastard traitor, someone who wasn't worth defending. something. In the past, Yongo had brutally attacked a group of boys. One of them, desperate, grabbed his leg and begged for mercy, asking him not to kill him. Yongo smiled upon hearing those words and without hesitation said that he used to ask the same thing, but back then, no one listened to him. Holding the boy's head, Yongo asked if he had ever spared him. Squeezing the boy's ear, he asked what he would do if he didn't hear anything. With a knife in his hand, he claimed there was no use and that therefore he would do the dirty work for him. In a quick motion, he ripped the boy's ear off. As the boy cried, now without his ear, Yongo realized that by joining the Thunderstorm gang, he had stopped being the victim and became the predator. He had become addicted to the power that strength gave him, and now he wanted more. As he smoked, Yongo thought he was ready for anything that would prove his strength. At that moment, Jinsa appeared from behind and upon seeing him, said that he had finally found him. Holding the phone, he commented that he had received a job offer that paid well, where he would have to manage a business. Curious, Yongo asked if it was from the group and what Jinsap intended to do. Jinsap replied that it wasn't, but it was something more exciting than that. He then asked if Yongo remembered a man called Sinchiro, who had worked with them before. Yongo was surprised and asked if he was talking about the guy who ran a punishing operation using voice commands. Jinsap confirmed, saying that he made a fortune by collecting money from victims. Yongo commented that he heard the police nearly caught Michael and Hang near the terminal lockers last time, and that it had been very risky. Jinsap responded, suggesting that Yongo think of a better way to make money without the risk. Intrigued, Yongo asked if that was possible, and Jinsap explained that there was no problem with doing the job as long as physical effort could be avoided. Yongo asked where he could find enough manpower for such a task. He was startled when he heard the name of the orphanage he grew up in. Jinsap revealed that the orphanage's director was addicted to gambling and had lost all his fortune to the guards and had also gone into debt with them. From what he knew, he had also squandered all the orphanage's funds. The only thing he had left was the position of director, and now he planned to make the children work to pay off his debts. As they walked through the orphanage, Yongo, holding a baton, knew the director was looking for children to force them into labor. Crying, Yongo regretted forgetting his family before joining Thunderstorm. Feeling remorseful, he prayed, asking God to take care of the children. Looking out the window, he saw the director gambling and losing to other men. The sight filled him with rage, and he tightened his grip on the baton, muttering that no matter what happened to him, no one had the right to mess with his brothers. As the two men ran, the director stayed behind, wondering what was happening. Standing still, he knew that Yongo was a man without mercy and didn't care about the children at the orphanage. Raising his bat, Yongo couldn't believe the director had used the children to try to pay off his debts. Attacking him, Yongo said that he had crossed all boundaries. The director begged for forgiveness, saying he had an explanation. However, Yongo responded that he could kill him right there, but instead, he would give him a chance to survive. He then broke the director's nameplate and ordered him to leave and never come back. Otherwise, Yongo would report his illegal gambling activities and his attempt to involve the children in crime. If the director didn't follow his orders, Yongo would expose him and kill him. A small child tried to wake up Haitian, and other children commented that they had heard a strange noise, thinking it was a thief, and that they were scared. Haitian tried to reassure them, saying everything would be okay. Going downstairs to understand what was happening, she thought the children were afraid of thunder. It didn't seem like anyone would come there at night without a reason. As she went further down the stairs, she noticed there was a mess and asked what was going on. However, something caught her attention. Looking ahead as she saw Yongo walking with a baton. Yongo looked back while crying heavily. At that moment, the orphanage was illuminated by a strong lightning bolt. Lighting his cigarette, Jinsap commented that the orphanage's director had disappeared. He also mentioned that he had spoken with Sinchira, who stayed out of this story. Jinsap asked if Yongo was responsible for this. Smiling, Yongo replied that they thought he would work for them forever, but that he found an opportunity and seized it. Jinsap listened coldly to Yongo's comment, saying that wolves don't belong to packs of stray dogs. As he stood up from his chair, Jinsap said that was why he tried to take the whole business for himself and that you couldn't trust anyone. Yongo, deep in thought, accepted that he would have to take full responsibility for what happened. Raising his fists, still holding Yongo's head, Jinsap stated that he would show mercy for old time's sake. Coldly, he said that he didn't want his brothers involved in such unpleasant business. That's why he took the blame for them. Back in the present, Yongo said that they were like his family. So no matter what happened to him, no one would mess with his brothers. Jinsap then responded that he knew that, and that was the reason he accepted him back. However, he wasn't doing this out of charity. Jinsap knew that Yongo had been part of that orphanage and had been looking for an opportunity to get revenge on him. But in the end, Yongo came crawling back with his tail between his legs. Because of this, Jinsap didn't even have to look for him. Now he intended to finish everything he had started in the past. Gil Su asked if Jinsap hadn't heard what he asked and ordered him to step back again. Now it would be 4 against 1. Smiling, Jinsap replied that then it would be 4 against 1. To Gil Su's surprise, a large number of people appeared behind Jinsap. Deal and gangmen wondered when the Thunderstorm gang had appeared. Everyone was armed with pieces of wood ready for a war. Gil Su was startled by the number of people who had shown up out of nowhere. Jinsap, smiling, said that Gil Su couldn't bite more than he could chew. Jinsap then gave the order for everyone to attack. After the order, everyone charges forward. Most of them shout that they are members of Thunderstorm. Surprised by the number of people present, Gil Su doesn't know how he will manage to handle all of them after already fighting hard against the other members. Placing his hand on Gil Gil Su's shoulder, Gil asks everyone to gather. Jungmin says that fighting all of them won't be easy, but they might have a chance. Gil affirms that they can, as they are all decent fighters, so they might stand a chance. Seeing this, Yongo is surprised, thinking this has nothing to do with them, but still they want to fight. Seeing the three of them in their glory, Yongo asks the reason for this, but something quickly approaches him. Jinsop's punch hits him square in the face. Smiling, Jinsop says Yongo should pay attention since he still has unfinished business with him. Getting up, Yongo states that he feels the same. Wiping his face, he says he will finish this once and for all. The protagonist and his friends begin the battle with the gang members. While defending, Gil Su thinks there are too many of them, barely managing to defend himself. Gil helps Gil Su, hitting the enemy in front of him. He says he's there whenever Gil Su needs help. Then the three of them unite and agree to defend each other's backs. Gil Su thinks that now he is no longer fighting alone. Yongo attacks Jinsa. He then tries to intimidate Yongo with some offensive words. Attacking several times, Jinsop tells Yongo to know his place. While defending, Yongo realizes that his kick isn't working due to Jinsop's vest. Instead, he's being hurt by the brass knuckles. Seeing Jinsop's attack, Yongo thinks that if only he had some way to defend himself, it would be different. To defend himself, he uses his shin guard. However, the shin guard breaks completely. He's even surprised, thinking that it broke too quickly. Charging forward, Jinsop asks what he will do without the shin guard and says he'll remember how things were when he was a weak guy. Jinsop calls him a traitor as he attacks. Thanks to the impact, Yongo was sent back a considerable distance. Standing in front of Yongo, Jinsop states that he was nothing without the thunderstorm gear. Frustrated without his shin guard, Yongo thinks that he never had a chance against Jinsop. While distracted, he hears his friends fighting on the other side and stops for a moment to observe. He notices that the three of them are somehow handling the enemies. Even at a disadvantage, they are managing to hold their ground. Wiping his face, Yongo believes this is shameful and he can't give up while his friends are fighting seriously. Jinsop, seeing this, is surprised. Throwing the broken shin guards on the ground, Yongo says he doesn't need them. Then he could get them back. Getting into a mourner position, Yongo states that he will show what he's really made of and won't give up until the fight is over. Smiling, Jinsop thanks Yongo for his wish of death. He even tells Yongo not to take his shin guards off. Jumping at Yongo, Jinsop says he will show what happens when he doesn't listen. Yongo believes it was too soon to think he could do anything against Jinsop's infernal punches. At least he tries his best to dodge. For a moment, he avoids the first blow. He's even surprised by what just happened. Jumping back, he realizes his steps are much lighter than usual. Before he could think of anything, Yongo begins to dodge all the blows easily. Jinsop becomes worried when he notices a knee coming toward him. Hitting him in the chin, Yongo stops to think that now he's much faster than before. All of this after removing the shin guards. As he lands several blows on Jinsop, Yongo wonders just how fast he's actually become, not knowing that he's also stronger. Trying to defend himself, Jinsop says that this is the last strength he has. Trying to attack him, Jinsop says it won't change anything and tries to prolong the fight. Yongo leaps into the air. Jinsop looks up and sees a powerful kick coming toward him. Looking down, Yongo thinks that it's been a while since he fought this way without the shin guards. He remembers his past, where Jinsop always said he didn't win because he was strong, but because the strong win. Jinsop even told Yongo never to shoot to avoid losing. In the present, Yongo lands a precise blow. He thinks that the things that could protect him ended up becoming a burden, preventing his progress. On the ground, Jinsop wonders how this is possible. How could he lose to Yongo? With eyes full of fury, Jinsop says he can't lose to a failure. In a flashback, some people are sleeping. Jinsop is talking to a man saying he's taking someone to an unknown place. The man says it's hard to keep everyone fed the way they are. Smiling, Jinsop says he's keeping Yongo around just because he needs him for something. Smiling, Jinsop says he's keeping Yongo around just because he needs him for something. Watching Yongo sleep, Jinsop comments that he has no family. If something were to happen to him, no one would care. He could just take everything from him and then dispose of him after using him enough. With his hand on the ground, Jinsop tries to get up, saying that he's Jinsop of the Thunderstorm Gang. With great fury, he charges forward, saying he's not going to lose to a loser like Yongo. With quick steps, Yongo says that Jinsop has forgotten his own words. With another kick, Yongo prepares to attack Jinsop, and he hits him square in the face once more. With broken teeth, Yongo states that you don't win because you're strong. You win because you deceive yourself and you become strong. Gil Su watches all of this happening. Placing his hand on his head, Yongo tells Jinsop that he was the one who taught him that. Finally, Jinsop is defeated at the hands of Yongo. The remaining members of the battle, surprised, are in shock upon seeing their captain fallen. One of the members comments that they could no longer escape now that they knew who had ordered the battle. Gil Su, curious, asks what they were talking about. The three of them then get into position, ready to fight. However, after hearing this, the other members start running desperately to flee the scene. Exhausted, Yongo falls to the ground, unable to believe that he defeated the feared Jinsop, the leader of the Thunderstorm Gang. Looking at the light, he sees the Prota approaching and thinks about how much he feared this moment. Gil Su extends his hand to help him up, telling him to get up because he won the battle. Surprised to hear this, Yongo recalls the moment when the Prota extended his hand to him after his victory in the last fight. Thinking about how much he wished he had fought in a fairer way, he extends his hand to the Prota, admitting his defeat. Accepting Gil Su's help to get up, Yongo thanks him. Looking at Yongo, Gil Su Su tells him not to thank him but to thank the girl who's approaching. Yongo is surprised when he hears someone calling his name and sees Hazen running toward him. Surprised, he asks how she knew he was there. Then, out of nowhere, she hugs him tightly. Crying, she asks if he's okay and expresses how worried she was for him. Not knowing how to react, Yongo answers that he's fine, giving a shy smile. Now, everyone can finally rest after the tough battle. The next day at school, Gil Su is looking for his bag, saying he doesn't know where he lost it. Deal, curious, asks what happened, and Gil Su responds that he can't find his wallet and doesn't know where he lost it. He screams in shock upon realizing that his debit card and student ID were inside it. Deal tries to calm him down, suggesting that maybe he left it at home and can find it later. Two people walk by them, commenting on the Thunderstorm gang, and one of them mentions that Yongo was seen there. Deal and Gil Su look back, and the men say that Yongo would probably have to serve juvenile time for getting involved with the Thunderstorm gang. Gil Su, curious, asks about the rumors, but before he can ask more, he is surprised to realize that Yongo is right there, overhearing the conversation. With a cold look, Yongo asks who's screwed here. The Debiloid, surprised, asks what Yongo is doing there since he had dropped out of school. To respond in kind, Yongo says that it's none of his business. Passing by Debiloid, he warns him, saying that he better watch what he says or he'll pay for it in the arena if he keeps talking nonsense. Seeing this, Gil Su feels happy realizing that Yongo returned to school. Sitting at his desk, Yongo thinks that returning to school at that moment wasn't ideal and he feels tired. He didn't like school and he knew he wasn't cut out for it. He was only there because Ren Hasten had forced him to attend. Then Yongo's thoughts drift back to a moment from the past. Hasten scolds Yongo for getting involved with crime and dropping out of school. She says that this wasn't who he was and she wanted him to return to his old self. He tries to calm her down, telling her not to cry, while the others watch from a distance. Wiping her tears, Hazen asks him to return to school, making a promise with him and raising their pinkies. Yongo is happy with the promise, saying that promise should be kept. But before he could think of anything else, the door unexpectedly opens. Someone enters the room saying they didn't expect Yongo to return so soon to school and thought he had left for good. Kang enters and says he heard that Yongo defeated Thunderstorm and that it seemed like he still had fire within him. Yongo asks what Kang wants since he had nothing to do with the incident. Kang, approaching Yongo, says that he could accept him back, mentioning that he only made a small mistake. Smiling sarcastically, Yongo asks if he would really accept him back. As he stands and passes by Kang, he says that this was an offer, but he immediately refuses it. Kang asks if Yongo is sure about this, reminding him that he has nowhere to stay. Kang mentions that the ungroup was Yongo's only hope. As he walks away, Yongo tells Kang to take care of his own life and that he would figure things out on his own. At night, in another location, a box is being packed with a red ribbon. While packing the box, Yongo thinks about the criminal syndicate, Kangan, and how they provided dormitories in the underground. He thinks that he didn't have much to do since he was an orphan and had nowhere to go. As he walks, Yongo reflects on his need to belong somewhere, as he had always been alone. He wanted to feel proud of being part of a powerful organization, seeking security in it. But he soon realizes that fighting only brings more violence and betrayal. Now, Yongo finds himself in front of the orphanage where he lived as a child. He realizes that the gang cannot offer what he's looking for. At this moment, Heijin asks the children to stop running, as they could get hurt. The children stop when they notice someone approaching and point at Yongo. He asks the children to listen to Heijin. Happy, the children run toward Yongo to hug him. Yongo smiles because all he ever wanted was one family. With some lights on, the children ask him to wait a minute. Yongo looks back and something catches his attention. When he realizes the three of them are there, and he wonders why. Smiling, Gil Su says that this is how he greets his guests. Heijin, a bit angry, tells Yongo that she invited them because it was the least he could do to thank them for their help. Gil Su is happy to see Yongo back at school because there is a big issue to resolve. Yongo says that next time he will win quickly, like a flash. Deal and Jung Min observe the two of them teasing each other. Gil Su, curious, asks what happened to the motorcycle. Yongo responds that maybe he'll have to pay for the repairs. Curious, Gil Su asks who the owner of the bike was. Yongo doesn't know, but he heard that the owner was also at the school. In a corner, some people are busy and the bike is covered in gasoline. Someone picks up a lighter that was on the floor. Then they look at the bike, wondering why it was completely destroyed. With glowing eyes, they couldn't believe someone actually tried to set fire to their bike. Like a snake, they say they'll kill whoever did this. They are known as the leader of Ginseng Tech, and their name is Haya Qinhuang. Hey everyone, did you enjoy the story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys. Hey everyone, did you enjoy the story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.